What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to what's the longest walkable distance on Earth? That's a very interesting question. This is also by RealLifeLore. Forgot to say that. But it's a very interesting question. I would assume the longest distance you can walk on Earth would be, I assume it's in like a straight line, right? And I would assume that was probably going to be from some point in Russia, near the top of Russia, all the way down to like somewhere around China-ish. I assume that has to be the longest point, right? Or maybe instead of this way, it might be the other way, where it's some point in Russia down to like Italy-ish. I don't know. But anyway, hope it's been quite interesting. I really like RealLifeLore's videos. With that being said, the original link's in the description. And without any further ado, let's begin.
What is the longest walkable distance that you can take on Earth? There's a few different possibilities, but for the purpose of this video, I need to...
Actually, wait a minute. I think there's actually like a hiking trail that goes... Nah, never mind. No, I don't think it's that long. I was gonna say, I think there's a hiking trail that's so long that it's like 1,000 miles or something. But then again, if you were to go from the, you know, what I was saying, the one part in Russia to down to Italy or whatever, that's gonna be over 1,000 miles.
Make a few clarifications first. We want to find the longest walkable distance between 2 points on the Earth's surface, and we want to make sure that we're actually walking the entire time and not taking any shortcuts, ferries, or boats across any water. Finally, we need to be able to visualize the walk in Google Maps and have it be capable of feeding us directions during the journey. If Google isn't able to calculate the journey, then it's disqualified. So based on these criteria, the longest route by far...
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Yeah, logically it'd be from like right here to like right over here. Look how long that is. But then again, if you have to use Google Maps, like I'm pretty sure there aren't roads up here because it's so far up north, so that you probably that probably wouldn't even be considered. Therefore, I don't know.
That you can calculate inside of Google is a trek from Cape Town, South Africa to Magadan, Russia.
Wait, you can actually walk that far? Oh, so you could walk down here and you could come up through here. Wow, that has to be the longest right there.
Well, more specifically, from this town nearby Cape Town, which is the southernmost point of the African continent. From my own personal research into this, nobody in history has ever before managed to complete this real...
Yeah, because you probably end up in some really dangerous areas. I don't doubt anyone for not trying it. You're gonna go through like war zones and people are like, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm just walking. Walking up there!
Real-life achievement. People have already climbed the tallest mountain, sunk to the deepest part of the ocean, and even landed on the moon, but nobody has ever accomplished the longest possible walk. So, what would it
How many years would it take? You better calculate that too.
Actually be like for you if you decided to become the first? Here is a brief overview of both the horrible and
the landscapes would just be awful. I think going through Africa, you'd go through rainforests and deserts, which are very hard to survive in. It just seems like a very bad idea.
Amazing things that you would end up experiencing and dealing with. As a brief overview though, the entire journey would span a distance of...
Wait, so you actually go through the, I think, is this the Amazon right here? I don't know geography that well, so don't come at me. I don't know. Was that 14,000 miles? 14,000 miles? Oh my goodness. But it looks like you're gonna go right through like a rainforest or something here. I would hate doing that. Do you know the kind of crazy bugs that live in there? You're also gonna go through a desert. The Middle East right here? No, I think the Middle East is down here. You might actually totally avoid the fighting areas, so that actually might be really good.
23,068 kilometers and feature elevation changes of 123,000 meters and back down again, which is basically like you climbing up Mount Everest and back down again 14 times. If you enter this route into Google yourself, it'll differ slightly from the one that I'm showing you in this video because Google annoyingly always tries to help you out with ferries across the major geographic barriers you'll face along the way, like the Zambezi River, the Nile River, the Red Sea, and the Black Sea. But I've manually forced a route that doesn't take any ferries because that isn't walking and that is cheating. So Google estimates a time of
4,600. Okay, I gotta find this out. Give me a second. I'm gonna do some math. Math time. All right, so we got 4,646 hours. Now, I'm not gonna divide that by 24 because there's no way you're able to walk for 24 hours a day. You might be able to walk for 12 hours a day, and then for the other 12, you might, you know, stop and eat or something like that and not have a sleep. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna divide it by 12. It would take you 387 days of walking for 12 hours a day to complete this. 387. So you could be doing this for over a year, just completely walking. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of intriguing. Now, I couldn't do it because I sit in a chair for the majority of the day, so my legs are not used to walking that much. But I kind of want to see what it'd be like walking. Also, I don't know any of the languages throughout here, so it'd be very difficult to get around.
Completion for my route from start at 4,646 hours, or 194 days of continuous non-stop walking.
Yeah, but there's no way you could do that. It would have to be like 12 hours a day, which is insane. I think most people might be able to do like 6 to 8 hours a day, and the rest of the time they'd try to recover from the walk. But there's no way someone's walking for 24 hours a day.
However, that's actually quite a misleading estimate. It's more reasonable to assume that at best, the average person partaking in this journey would probably be more likely to only be capable of walking approximately 20 kilometers per day over an 8-hour period each day.
Yeah, see, you did 8 hours. I did 12 hours in the math, and the 12 hours takes you up to like, what was it again? Like 380 something days or something?
If you could manage to keep up that pace continuously every day, it would take you 1,153
3 years.
Days, or
That's
over
believable.
3 full years to complete the entire journey. And that's assuming that nothing goes wrong to you.
Oh, something definitely is going to go wrong. You know, that's life. Stuff goes wrong, it's life. Also, you're going to be walking through some really dangerous areas. Like, if this is what I think it is, and this is a rainforest, that's dangerous. And this is a desert, that's dangerous. I wish I had a map here of, you know, the actual, like, countries. Because I know certain countries have higher, crime rates than others. But I know, you know, if you're walking in the Middle East, let's just say I wouldn't do that.
Along the way, which, I mean, if you look back at the map and see some of the places where you'll be going, you probably aren't going to get that lucky. Starting off, you have to walk across the entirety of South Africa, but you avoid all of the really dangerous cities before arriving in.
Yeah, I think the crime rate in South Africa is pretty high. Also, not to mention, like, just like the viruses and stuff you could pick up from the environment, whether it be mosquitoes, other kind of animal bites or whatever. You know, if you live in North America, other parts of the world, you'd have to get so many, like, shots and vaccines to try to keep yourself safe from whatever, you know, is out there.
Zimbabwe, which is when things may start to get a little sketchy. The crime isn't particularly high in Zimbabwe, but they do have some pretty whack creatures that you should worry about, like the black mamba.
Oh, yeah, that thing's dangerous. But look at him. He's got a nice little cute head. You just want to pet him.
Snake that can both outrun you and kill you within 20 minutes of a bite if you don't get an anti-venom in time. You have to cross the entire country before you hop over into Mozambique, where you briefly walk across before you enter over into Malawi, which has the 9th highest rate of malaria in the world.
Oh my goodness. The 9th highest rate of malaria. Yeah, see, you need malaria pills, and I think malaria pills you have to take 1 a day. You would have to have like a doctor traveling with you constantly to give you medicine.
And you have to walk a decently long way through. The wrong bite from the wrong mosquito at any time that you're here can give you the disease and knock you out of
I hate mosquitoes so much.
action, or possibly even kill you. And it gets worse when you cross through Zambia for a hot minute, because Zambia has the 6th highest rate of malaria in the world. Then you cross back into Malawi again for another hot minute before you cross the border into Tanzania, which you also have.
Tanzania's got, I think they're pretty high for what's it called? Malaria.
Have to hike all the way across until you find yourself entering into the malaria capital of the world, Uganda. If you know the way through, Uganda isn't particularly dangerous, save for having the highest recorded cases of malaria in the world. However, you do
Why do you gotta show the mosquitoes? I hate mosquitoes so much.
have to cross through Murchison Falls National Park, which does have things like hippos, gorillas, and even more black mambas. Quite possibly the sketchiest part of your trip begins, though, when you cross the border into South Sudan, which, oh boy, is
Sudan?
considered the 3rd most dangerous country on the
Yeah, it's a pretty dangerous place.
entire planet to be in, ahead of even other places like Iraq or Yemen. Armed conflict between opposing political and ethnic groups is ongoing across the country, while carjackings, shootings, ambushes, assaults, robberies, and kidnappings are pretty common occurrences.
Yeah, it's like, and you're just gonna be walking. Like almost like a war zone, just like just minding my own business. You might be safe. Who knows? But like your odds of being safe keep going down the further you get into this journey. Like mosquitoes, freaking. Ugh.
Even US government employees here have very strict curfews and travel in armored transport carriers for their own safety.
Oh my
You'll
goodness.
definitely have a difficult time walking through here before arriving into regular Sudan, where you have to journey across the Sahara and...
Yeah, there's the desert. Oh, that'd kill you alone. I don't think you could technically walk through the Sahara just because of you need so much water in the heat, and if you don't get enough water, you're gonna be gone. So you have to have someone with you, like a vehicle, supplying you water the whole way.
Scorching temperatures of up to 47 degrees Celsius in the summertime before you arrive here at Wadi Halfa, right before Egypt. There isn't a single road that connects Sudan with Egypt, which...
And I'm so bad at geography, it's kind of interesting seeing where all these countries are.
seems like pretty poor planning on their part, so Google wants you to take a ferry across Lake Nasser to Aswan in Egypt. But that is breaking our rules, so you're gonna have to just huff it across the empty Sahara without a road.
You're gonna have to walk across the Sahara without a road? You can't do that. You can't do that and live. You have to have water. You have to have water.
Or arriving into Aswan yourself. That's pretty dangerous and you'll probably die, but I mean, you'll probably have died a dozen times before this anyway. So
Yeah.
then you walk across basically the entirety of Egypt, cross the Suez Canal Bridge, and walk all the way across the Suez to Jordan while briefly hopping through Israel. Walking through Jordan shouldn't be too bad, but things hop right back into Sketchtown when you enter into Syria. The brutal civil war
Yeah, you're walking into legit, like, war zones. Oh my goodness.
that has claimed at least 500,000 lives in the country is still ongoing, and Syria is considered to be the second most dangerous country in the entire world, only behind Afghanistan. So yeah, good luck walking through all of that. This entire thing is starting to seem like suicide, but with extra steps, but things
A lot of extra steps.
start getting back to normal when you cross through Turkey, then Georgia, and finally into Russia, which...
Yeah, I think once you get past here, and I think then you're kind of on like a downward slope as in terms of safeness. I mean, sure, Russia isn't that safe, but can you compare it to some of the other places? It's a lot safer.
Is by far the longest part of your journey. You'll have to walk across practically the entire country and walk deep through Siberia, which is so
Siberia, oh my goodness, that's where the Germans lost, isn't it? It's so cold.
huge. You're guaranteed to be there during the winter at some point. And if you survived everything up to here, it would sure be a shame to just freeze to death near somewhere like Yakutsk, where the average January temperature is negative 39 degrees Celsius. The road from here to Magadan is known as the Road of Bones, after the thousands of...
Oh, I've heard of the Road of Bones. Yeah, I think when they were making this, they had thousands of people die, and they just like buried the bodies into the road. So that's why it's called the Road of Bones. That's what, was it Stalin or the other one who did that?
Gulag laborers who died constructing it under Stalin, and whose bodies were simply mixed in with the very fabric of the road that you're walking across. So if you somehow survived all of this and you cross this final obstacle into Magadan, congratulations, because you've just done something that nobody else in human history has ever done before. You've completed the
Or even ever attempted. I can understand why. It's such a dangerous journey.
longest possible walk between 2 points on the Earth's surface, and it's probably only taken you at least 3 years of your life to finish. Now,
On a realistic note, so they would take you 3 years of walking 8 hours a day. Now, let's say sometimes you're gonna be in the hospital. You know, if you manage to survive this, you're gonna be in the hospital a good number of times from some kind of sickness, some kind of wound, some kind of ailment. So you're gonna be in the hospital. So I would say you need at least 6 months to a year worth of hospital time as well. So you're looking at maybe 4 years. And then the travel time from the hospital to where you last left off walking, 4.25 years maybe to do this.
many real-life lore viewers
You would also have to have passports to get you through each country. And yeah, I don't know how well that would go. Some countries are really strict with who they let in and whatnot. Anyway, I think this is freaking really cool. I think this is really cool. That was a lot longer of a journey than I was expecting. I was expecting it from... Like, I'm not really good at geography, so that's why my whole kind of guess was off. I was thinking it was from, like, the top part of Russia down to, Italy or something, but no, this is a lot further. And, yeah, you would have to walk through a lot of dangerous countries. and go through a lot of, yeah, I would not do that. Let's just say I would not do that. I don't know, it seems interesting though, like it's intriguing. I kind of want to, but I don't like walking, so I don't think I would. And I'm not that, you know, I'm not that much of a gambler with my life. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're new, hit subscribe to the family. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore, and I'll see you guys next time. Boop. What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx, and today I'm going to be reacting to what is the highest distance you can possibly fall from by Real Life Lore. Now, I haven't reacted to a Real Life Lore video in a long time, and yeah, I hope you guys like this reaction. If you do, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Without any further ado, let's begin. Also, to answer this question, is this the highest distance you can fall from and survive? Or the highest distance you can fall from in general? Because if it's, you know, the highest distance you can fall from and just in general, I would assume it would be like right in the Earth's atmosphere. Like, you know, you're gonna get to a certain point outside of the Earth's atmosphere where you won't fall and gravity won't have an effect. But if you just come a little bit closer, it will have an effect, and then you can fall from there. That's what I assume is the highest point.
Falling down is something that nobody really likes. Even if you think
Well, some people freaking like it. Some people jump out of planes for fun.
you like skydiving or bungee jumping or base jumping, you don't really. Or at least your body doesn't really, because that thrill that you feel while you're falling is kind of more like an instinctual panic.
Now that's the kind of bungee jumping I would actually do, I think. Because bungee jumping in general, it seems so freaking dangerous, and I hate the idea of it, because what if the bungee snaps? Now, if you're doing it over water, where if it does snap, it's like, okay, you're gonna go have a swim. It's like, it's no big deal. So this is actually something I would probably consider doing. This kind of then again, is it dangerous on your, like, your spine, just pulling your spine apart? Okay, whatever.
Panic built up over millions of years of evolution that's trying to remind you of all of your ancestors that have died.
That actually looks really fun right there.
Fun. Anyway, this got me thinking about what's the highest possible distance that you can jump off of and fall from anywhere in the world. But before we get into
And fall from. Oh, the highest distance you can jump off of. So that means it has to be something that's on the ground, like a tower or something. Probably was it the Burj Khalifa Tower in Dubai? I think that's the highest tower in the world. That'd probably be it. If it means you have to jump off of it, right? Or what, like an airplane? I don't know.
We need to establish a very important rule. The distance of your fall needs to be continuous and vertical, meaning that you can't just jump off of something, hit something else, and bounce off and continue falling some more. We're looking for the longest and cleanest vertical jump you can make anywhere in the world. So let's look around a bit at some of the contenders. The tallest man-made building that you could jump off of is theoretically the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, at 828 meters tall.
But you're saying it has to be a straight fall, and you can't hit, like, can't land and then keep falling, right? But the Burj Khalifa has all these weird, like, jagged edges, right, from its design. So therefore, maybe you couldn't even jump off this height.
Your fall from the top down to the bottom would take approximately 20 seconds of continuous free fall. But
oh, maybe you could.
Absolutely nowhere near the tallest height that you can take a jump from, because nature continues to totally dominate this category. You might think that the obvious answer here would be Mount Everest, but that's just absolute.
You can't jump off it though, right?
Not the case. Remembering our major rule from earlier about a strictly vertical freefall eliminates Mount Everest from the contention. Because while Everest does have some pretty steep cliffs, I mean, look at these, the mountain is overall pretty jagged in structure. So if you
and wide.
You would just hit another piece of rock, die, bounce off of that, and then make more of a tumbling motion down the mountainside like this. That's not exactly what we're looking for, and there are cliffs elsewhere in the world that offer significantly higher freefalls than any of the ones do on Everest.
Wait. So you're saying the Burj Khalifa isn't even the highest? I find that hard to believe. I really find that hard to believe.
One of these cliffs is more like a super deep hole in the Tianjin cave of China. There's a shaft inside of this cave that plummets down
shaft
1,026 meters below in a directly vertical hole, deeper than the Burj Khalifa.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I was gonna say, you know, I was gonna say, the Burj Khalifa is the highest freaking thing ever made or that exists. How could there be something higher? I never thought. It could be deeper. It could just go straight downwards. And yeah, I have no clue the depth that you could go straight down.
Is tall. Theoretically, you could jump into this hole and free fall for roughly 24 seconds in total complete darkness before hitting the bottom. But
That'd be terrifying. Just complete darkness, just waiting for a year to go.
other natural features will even outdo this one in epicness. If you're looking for the absolute highest vertical drop to fall from in the world, then you need to schedule a visit here on Baffin Island in the Nunavut province of Canada. It's one of the most sparsely inhabited places in the world, but if you make the trek out into the middle of nowhere to the epically named Mount Thor, you'll discover
Whoa! Oh, that's freaking huge.
The single tallest confirmed vertical cliff anywhere in the world.
Wow,
This cliff
that's massive. Is that bigger than the Burj Khalifa?
you see here is actually at a 105-degree angle, so it's even steeper than vertical. Human beings didn't even successfully manage to climb up to the top of it until 1985. But if you could somehow get up there and jump off from it, you'll experience a truly vertical freefall from 1,250
Is that higher than the Burj Khalifa then? Or however you say it? Because I thought the Burj Khalifa was like the highest thing ever. This thing looks like it might actually be higher.
meters above the surface that'll last for roughly 28 seconds
Wow.
long before you impact the surface. However, I said that this is only the tallest confirmed vertical cliff in the world. Owing to the extremely remote location that it's located in, there are other cliffs scattered around Nunavut and Greenland that could potentially be even higher, but they've never
I wouldn't be surprised if in like Greenland, Iceland, and maybe like the Netherlands, that there might be some crazy cliffs that might be bigger.
been identified, so we have no idea right now. But there is actually one confirmed cliff that's actually a higher vertical drop, and it's located around here in the far northern portion of Pakistan. A group of mountains here, called the Trango Towers, offers up a pretty spiky
Whoa.
challenge to the tallest vertical drop claim offered up from Mount Thor. The tallest mountain in the group, called Great Trango, is widely considered the most difficult mountain in the entire world to climb.
How many people have done it?
And for very, very good reason, because it features a nearly vertical cliff that plummets 1,340
Wow.
meters over the top. The cliff isn't quite literally as vertical as the cliff on Mount Thor is, so there's quite a bit of cliff controversy and arguments in the geography world.
So if you were to jump off the top here, would you then hit the bottom part and not be able to jump like the full amount? Also, are these are higher than the Burj Khalifa? Is that real? I thought the Burj Khalifa was like the highest thing ever, but from the looks of it, I am mistaken in believing that.
World over its status, but that's all for the nerds to figure out. You came here because you just care about the tallest drop. So, if you made it to the top of Great Trango and jumped off, your nearly vertical fall would clock in at roughly 30 seconds long.
Wow.
So 2 seconds longer than a jump from the top of Mount Thor would be. Congrats! You've now discovered the highest possible point to jump off and experience a free fall from anywhere on the Earth's surface. But what about outside of Earth?
Oh no, that's just cheating. That's just cheating. I'm sure outside of Earth there are crazier, much crazier things that are a lot higher, you know?
I mean, cliffs exist elsewhere in the universe, right? Surely there must be a cliff even higher up than anything we have here on.
I don't think you should be going outside of Earth here, because on different places, the gravity's different, so that's going to affect your falling speed. So, you know, you might jump off a 100 or 200 foot cliff, which isn't really much compared to Mount Thor or whatever. But, you know, if you jump off a 200 foot cliff and the gravity's barely anything, it's going to take you like 2 minutes to reach the bottom.
On Earth. And it turns out there are. If you could somehow make it over to Uranus,
I'm not gonna. No, I'm too young for these jokes.
excuse me, Uranus, and then hop on over to Uranus's moon, Miranda, you can discover a cliff that's a whopping 20 kilometers high.
What? I think that's around 15 miles-ish. I gotta freaking. Why do we gotta do kilometers? All right, it's 12 miles high. 12 miles high. Oh my goodness.
High. That's a vertical cliff face more than twice the height of Mount Everest is on Earth. And you can also totally jump off of it and survive. Because the gravity on Miranda is
Oh, here we are. Now we're talking about gravity. Good thing you're taking this into consideration.
way less than it is on Earth, it would take you about 12 minutes to jump off.
Oh my goodness, 12 minutes. You could almost get through like half an episode of Stranger Things or something, you know, half a TV show.
Off from the top of it before you'd hit the bottom, and you'd only be falling at around 124 miles per hour. I mean, that still does sound pretty bad, I guess, but all things considered, if you had some airbags, you could probably end up making it work out. Now, I know what everybody is going to say next. What about jumping out of airplanes?
Oh wait, so we're counting out jumping out of airplanes as a thing? I thought it was jumping off of something that was, you know, attached to the ground.
That definitely does count for vertical freefall, so let's move on to these.
Oh, okay. We're breaking all the rules today, I guess. I think my initial idea from the beginning was probably right, that we're gonna end up with falling from the outside of space to the ground. I think that's possible. Once you get sucked in by the gravity, it'll pull you in. So, like, once you reach the point where gravity has an effect on you, it's gonna pull you in, and you'll fall for I don't know how long.
These types of jumps next. A woman named Vesna Vulovic currently holds the world record for the tallest height ever survived falling out of an airplane without a parachute.
Without a parachute?
I made an entire video already just focusing on her incredible story, but in short, she
33,000 feet and she lived. What'd she land on? The biggest mattress pile ever?
managed to survive a fall from over 10,000 meters up in the sky after her plane blew up, and she did all of it without a parachute. She probably fell for around 3 minutes and 25 seconds, give or take. But that's far from the longest free fall.
That's freaking nuts.
Famously, in 2012, this dude named
Oh, is this the guy who jumped out of was it Red Bull thing where he jumped out of the big balloon?
Felix Baumgartner and the team at Red Bull Stratus broke.
That was 2012. Man, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. It feels like 16 maybe. Time flies fast. Enjoy it while you got it, I guess.
The world record for the world's highest freefall. Baumgartner rode in a capsule attached to a balloon up to a freakishly scary height of 39 kilometers above the Earth's surface.
What's that in miles? That's probably like friggin' 20-ish miles. Is that as far as you can go?
Or he just jumped out with nothing but a pressure suit and a parachute. His free fall lasted for 4 minutes and 19 seconds.
Still is nothing on the 15-minute fall from Uranus moon or whatever.
And his body reached a speed of 843.6 miles per hour, becoming the first human being whose body broke the sound barrier without the assistance of any engine. The Red Bull team believed that his free fall could have been extended safely to anywhere between 5 minutes and 6 minutes, but he deployed his parachute a little early instead.
I think didn't he deploy his parachute or something because he was like spinning out of control? I remember this. That he was like spinning out of control and they tried to stabilize him or something. I thought he pulled his parachute because of something like that.
Just 2 years later, however, in 2014, his freefall record was broken by another dude named Alan Eustace. Rather than going up in a fancy capsule, Eustace just tethered himself to a balloon, flew up to a ridiculous 41.4
I think I remember this too.
4 kilometers high, and used an explosive device to detach himself and begin his fall. Eustace was in a
What? Why did he use an explosive device? Freaking Mission Impossible style. Why did he just jump out?
Complete free fall for 37,616 meters before he deployed his parachute, and it took him 4 minutes and 27 seconds to accomplish, earning him the title of the guy that's fallen the furthest and the longest in all of human history. His record still stands tall today, but the limit that humans can endure is certainly even beyond that. The Red Bull Stratus team estimates.
Of course Red Bull's behind it. Felix Baumgartner, or whatever you freaking say, he must have been really mad hearing that the other guy beat him.
Made is that they could potentially pull off a free fall pushing into the 6-minute range, and the feats of Baumgartner and Eustace have proven that human bodies can endure drops from the stratosphere and
yeah, see, this is the stratosphere. This is what I was saying at the beginning. Like, the stratosphere is, like, I believe, right outside of space, right? Or right near like pure space, so there's no gravity effect on you.
Speeds that break the sound barrier. Whatever the limit of human freefall actually is, it certainly hasn't yet been reached, and I'm certain that the world record will continue to be pushed upwards and broken in the future by somebody. That somebody may even be watching this video right now.
No, I'm not that crazy. I might be a little bit off, but I ain't that crazy.
And I can only hope so.
Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. I think this is really freaking cool. I really enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've reacted to a real life lore video. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new, hit subscribe to the family. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop.
Let's go.
What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to what is the loudest sound ever heard by Real Life Lore. Now, I really like Real Life Lore's videos, so hopefully this will be quite awesome. But with that being said, the original link's in the description. Without any further ado, let's begin. Also, as far as what I think the loudest sound ever heard is, it would probably be this. What am I supposed to say? So yeah, anyway, let's begin.
Think for a moment about how loud the loudest sound that you've ever heard in your life was. If you're hearing my voice right now after experiencing an incident like that, then
it obviously didn't do that much damage to your ears, right? But yeah, I don't know what the loudest sound I've ever heard is. I mean, I just made the joke of it's me yelling, but I don't know what the loudest sound. Like, I've heard cannons go off. Those things are freaking loud. It would probably have to be cannons or like a hunting rifle or something like that, because I've heard those go off. They're freaking loud too. It has to be something like that.
then it was nowhere near the loudest sound that has ever happened. But before I can explain what the loudest sound was and how incredible it is, I first need to explain how sound is measured in terms of loudness in the first place. This image here is a sound wave. All you need to know about really is the amplitude of the wave, because it's the amplitude that determines how loud a sound appears to be to humans. The decibel scale is what's used to measure the loudness of a sound, and it's important to note that the scale is logarithmic.
Yeah, see, this is interesting to me. Even though, like, I work with audio in, you know, the making music program that I use, or whether it's just recording, you know, here or whatnot, I work with audio every day. But as far as how it actually works, I don't know.
This means that 10 decibels is 10 times more powerful than 0 decibels, and 20 decibels is 10 times more powerful than 10 decibels, but 100 times more powerful than 0 decibels.
What? Oh, that's weird. That's not what I would expect it to be.
With all of that in mind, let's start building our way up to the loudest sound in history by beginning at 10 decibels, which is about how loud standard human breathing is and is barely audible to the average human. 10 times more powerful than this at 20 decibels is the rustling of leaves in the wind, and then
Oh wow, so that's really quiet.
10 times more powerful than that at 30 decibels is a whisper. We're still in pretty quiet territory, so moving higher up to 44 decibels is the average ambient noise that's present in a library. A little bit higher than that, at 50 decibels, is the noise of a normal conversation in your home, and 10 times more powerful than
Well, I mean, it all depends what normal is to you, right? If you live with a family who likes to yell a lot and be very emotional, it could be a lot higher.
that, at 60 decibels, is the noise of a normal conversation in a restaurant. 70 decibels is about the noise that a vacuum cleaner produces, and it's a good comparison for all the noises that are coming up next.
Okay.
Twice as loud as that, at 80 decibels, is the noise created by a garbage disposal. And
Wasn't that like a shower? Did not look like a garbage disposal.
4 times as loud as a vacuum cleaner at 90 decibels is the noise that you would hear from a motorcycle engine if you were 7.5 meters away from it. 100 decibels would be 8 times louder than a vacuum cleaner and is roughly the noise produced by operating a jackhammer. Twice as loud as that, though, at 110 decibels is
The
the
megaphone?
average threshold that humans begin to experience pain at. And 100
Oh, okay. Oh, so right there's this next one's a concert. Right after saying that 100 decibels is where people start experiencing pain, then you go right up to a concert.
8 to 114 decibels is the average noise produced at a rock concert.
Yeah, so when people say that you go to a concert and you damage your hearing, it's not lying.
Friends over at Airplane Mode created a video about the value of music produced at concerts like this, so make sure to check out their video next in the description. A chainsaw produces a noise of 120 decibels, which is 32 times louder than the vacuum cleaner is. A shotgun firing right next to you is about 130 decibels, and about the loudest noise that you'll probably ever
Oh! Okay, that's right. A few months ago, I went with a friend to an airport because the airport had some like crazy jets that were there for an air show that was going on. So the jets would be at the airport, they would take off, then they'd go over to the air show. So my friend and I went to the airport so we could see them take off because that is as closest as you can get to them. When you're at an airport, they're starting from the ground and they're going upwards, right? This was legit, I think, the loudest thing I've ever heard. Like, louder than a cannon. So there was like the runway, and we were right, like if I'm standing right here, the runway was like right here. So when the airplane came, it went right over our heads. And when that happened, like, it wasn't that high off the ground. It wasn't that high at all. It was maybe like 20, 30 feet off the ground or something. It was really low. It was really friggin' low. And it was so loud. It was the loudest thing I've ever heard. And I swore I got like some kind of hearing damage after that. That was insane. But anyway, yeah, just seeing this airplane reminded me of that. So that's the loudest sound I've ever heard. It is, oh my goodness.
Here in your life is a passenger jet taking off if you were standing 25 meters away from it, which would...
So basically that's what I heard, but it wasn't a passenger jet, it was a fighter. So would a fighter be louder?
Be around 150 decibels. This is also the level of sound that can immediately rupture your eardrums instantly if you're ever exposed to it. But the...
So I guess the fighter jet's a little bit less loud? Or maybe I've just damaged my hearing that much. I don't know.
The loudest sound ever heard by humans that we've been building up to this entire time was unbelievably more loud than this. In the spring of 1883, the volcanic island of Krakatoa in modern-day Indonesia...
Oh, volcano!
...with a force of 200 megatons. A force so powerful it obliterated the entire island. Any sound over 194 decibels begins to distort into more of a shock wave from an explosion rather than an actual sound wave. But the Krakatoa eruption generated an estimated 310 decibels at the epicenter of the explosion.
Oh snap! Oh snap! Anyone around affected by that would not have hearing after that.
This force was so loud that sailors located 64 kilometers away from the blast had their eardrums ruptured.
Oh!
The noise was even louder though than this may seem at first, because a pressure gauge located 161 kilometers away measured a sound of 180 decibels.
A pressure gauge? What's that? This was in like 1880 something. Did they have this kind of technology way back then?
It would have taken the sound about 7 minutes and 53 seconds to reach that far from the volcano, and it still would have been enough to not only rupture your eardrums if you were standing there, but also knock the wind out of your lungs and shatter glass windows on buildings. It's possible you could have actually died from the sound waves impacting and smashing through your body.
And that's 100 miles away. Could you imagine anyone within that range just minding their own business on an island or whatever, just all of a sudden hit by that? Oh my.
But even if you didn't, you would be guaranteed to be permanently deaf for life afterwards.
Oh.
In real life, the volcanic blast was heard as far away as Perth, Australia, whose residents reported hearing what sounded like gunshots. It was also heard on the Indian Ocean island of Rodriguez, 4,800 kilometers away, whose residents reported what they believed to be cannon fire. Imagine if this time you were standing in Central Park and you heard what sounded like a cannon firing somewhere around you, only to find out later that the sound
it was halfway across the world.
Didn't come from near you at all, but rather came all the way from Ireland, and it took a time of nearly 4 hours to reach your ears.
Wow!
The sound wave began to...
4 hours!
Grow less and less audible to humans the farther it traveled until the frequency became too low to be heard. Even though the waves couldn't be heard by humans themselves past a certain range, our instruments detected that the waves generated from the...
Wait, what do you mean our instruments? This wasn't like 1880 or something like that? What instruments did they have back then to detect this kind of stuff? That's over 100 years ago. Technology-wise, things weren't as, you know, advanced as they are now. So what kind of instruments do they have to measure stuff like that? I don't know.
The blast circled around the entire planet 3.5 times. So the next time you turn on your speakers with the volume a little too high, at least it won't be loud enough to cause a global catastrophe.
Man, hearing that the passenger jet can cause, like, you to go permanently deaf, I'm very glad that I managed to not go completely deaf or anything like that from the jet going over our heads, because it was only like 20 to 30 feet up, something like that. It was not high at all. Oh, it was so unbelievably loud. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you did, subscribe to join the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. That link's in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx today, and gonna be reacting to This Was the Day the World Almost Ended by Real Life Lore. Now, Real Life Lore makes really cool videos. Apparently, the world almost ended someday. And judging from this title, this is gonna be a very interesting video. And a probably quite terrifying video as well. But yeah, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Without any further ado, let's begin.
October 27th, 1962.
1962, that's a long time ago.
Is the most important date in human history that nobody really knows about. It was the day that human civilization came the closest that it's ever been to being totally annihilated.
Oh, I think I know where this is going. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to continue on. I don't know if it's exactly what I'm thinking it is, but I think I might know.
If events had gone slightly differently that day, or one man had made a different decision, it's very likely
Oh, I definitely know where this is going.
that you would never have existed in the first place. And even if you did, the world you know today in 2019 would more closely resemble Fallout than our own. Because on October 27th, 1962, the world came the closest it's ever been to full-out nuclear war.
Oh yeah, I know this. I know this. Basically, what I think this story is about is, at one point, I don't know which country, whether it's Russia or the US, but like their warning detection system went off saying that there was a nuclear strike incoming, and the person made the decision that the alarm was actually just an accident and not actually a missile strike incoming, and so that decision there basically saved the world from a nuclear war. Because if the person thought it actually was a nuclear strike, then there would have been retaliation, and then you get a nuclear war after that.
Circumstances that almost led to disaster began 3 years previously in 1959, when the previous government of Cuba was overthrown by a new Marxist Communist Party that became the first country in the Western Hemisphere to openly ally with the Soviet Union. A communist country just 90 miles away from Florida was unacceptable to the US government at the time, and multiple attempts by the American government to assassinate Castro or overthrow his government, like the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, all failed. The American-sponsored but half-hearted invasion at the Bay of Pigs convinced Castro that the Americans were going to try and launch a full-scale
Maybe this is not what I was thinking. This does not seem to be the story at least I was thinking of.
invasion of Cuba at some point in the future. And so Castro was getting closer and closer in his alliance with the USSR. The Soviet Union, meanwhile, was concerned not only with the possibility of an American invasion of Cuba, but also with the recent deployments of American nuclear missiles in Italy, and more alarmingly to them, in Turkey. The missiles here were within striking distance of Ukraine and southern Russia itself, and America possessed one.
Or maybe it is the one I'm thinking of.
170 ICBMs on the American mainland capable of striking anywhere inside of the USSR. The Soviets, at the same time, only possessed a few dozen ICBMs. And besides that, they had no possible ability to strike the US mainland itself. The solution to balance out this disparity in attack capability in the eyes of the Soviets was obvious. They had thousands of—
What, friggin' move their weapons closer to the US? Oh, move them to Cuba. There we go, moving to Cuba. I don't know, is that actually what happened? I'm taking a guess.
medium and short-range nuclear missiles that couldn't hit the US from anywhere inside of the Soviet Union. So, why not begin putting these missiles in the territory
They did, oh my goodness.
of their new allies in Cuba that could then threaten to strike pretty much anywhere inside of America, just like the Americans had done by placing their missiles in Turkey. The problem was, the Soviets weren't sure how the Americans would react to nuclear missiles 90 miles away from their coast, so they began moving them in absolute secrecy starting in September 1962. It was the start of the most dangerous gamble that humanity has ever played,
That's crazy, I wasn't aware of this.
with the entire fate of the world literally at stake.
Or at least if I was aware, I totally forgot.
And for the first time in America's history, she faced the same threat that nearly every other country in the world has faced for centuries. The very real threat of total annihilation by an external power. The first photographic evidence of Soviet missiles by American spy planes flying over Cuba was acquired on October 14th. President Kennedy was notified on October 16th, when he called a meeting to discuss the American response options. They included doing nothing, using diplomacy
Doing nothing? Well, yeah, that is a response.
to pressure the Soviets to withdraw, threatening Castro with an invasion, blockading Cuba to prevent any new missiles from arriving, using airstrikes to destroy the known missile site locations, or using the US military to launch a full-scale invasion of Cuba to destroy the missile sites and overthrow Castro and his regime. The American Joint Chiefs of
Which one did they decide to do? Because my history ain't that good.
Staff were unanimous in their approval of the invasion option.
Oh, the invasion option. Well, there you go. There you go.
But only Kennedy disagreed. Unknown to them, Castro himself was convinced that America was planning on invading and urged the Soviets to fire a preemptive nuclear strike on
Oh my goodness.
American cities in preparation for it. The Soviet leader Khrushchev hesitated on his side, while Kennedy hesitated on his own side. Imagine how different the course of events may have been with any other world leaders who might have more easily fallen into peer pressure. But neither Kennedy nor Khrushchev did, although both prepared for war. Kennedy authorized a limited blockade of Cuba on October 22nd that was stopping
This is actually really interesting to me because I'm not the biggest history buff and I know very little in history. So this is all kind of new information, or if it's like if I learned it in school, I don't remember it.
any ship traveling suspected of carrying weapons. Khrushchev announced that the Soviets would be ignoring this blockade, and for the first time in US history, the nuclear alert system was raised to DEFCON 2, just one step before all-out nuclear war would be declared. And for the only time in US history, nuclear bombers went on continuous 24-hour alert, with several orbiting the USSR itself,
Wow, that's wild.
ready to drop the nukes on a 15-minute notice. 145 American ICBMs were armed and made ready to launch, with several aimed directly at Cuba. On October 20th,
145. Yeah, could you imagine if like all of those went off? Earth would almost be like uninhabitable at that point. Like the amount of radiation and stuff that would be in the air. Oh, it'd be horrible.
5th, the Soviets began challenging the US blockade and even getting a few ships slipped past. On October 26th, the US began making full preparations to invade Cuba, while on the same day, Castro continued to urge the Soviets in a telegram to launch the nuclear first strike against America. And then, finally, in this atmosphere of extreme
How did all this like calm down? Because this is like crazy intense, right? How did all this calm down?
tension, the day of October 27th came that decided the fate of the entire world right up until our current time. A Soviet submarine flotilla had managed to slip past the blockade of Cuba undetected sometime previously. But on October 27th, one of these subs, B-59, was discovered by the Americans. A squad of 11 American destroyers and one aircraft carrier pursued the Soviet sub in a
11 just for one?
dived further underwater. In order to signal they wanted the submarine to resurface and positively identify itself as a part of the blockade, one of the American destroyers began dropping practice dummy depth charges on B-59. These couldn't possibly hurt the submarine because they were just dummies,
So they tricked it to coming up?
but the Soviet crew on board didn't know that. They assumed that the charges were real, and since they had lost contact with Moscow several days previously, most of them assumed that war may have already started back above the surface.
I don't blame them. You don't have communication and you're in like a very tense situation like this.
Their submarine was armed with a T-5 torpedo tipped with a 5-kiloton nuclear warhead. If war had truly begun back above the surface like they believed, and the nukes had already been fired, then it wouldn't matter if they fired their nuclear torpedo against the American ships that seemed to be attacking them. There were 3 officers on board that all had to agree on deploying a nuclear weapon, and while 2 of them did agree, the third, named Vasily Arkhipov, was the sole man who disagreed. Arkhipov was the commander of the whole Soviet submarine
Maybe this is the story I'm familiar with, but I was just not aware to the detail of the story.
flotilla, and he just happened to choose by chance to be aboard B-59. Usually, the deployment of a nuclear weapon on a Soviet submarine only required the authorization of the 2 most senior ranking commanders on board, the captain and the political officer. Had Arkhipov not been present, these 2 who were in favor of the nuclear option would have had their way and it would have been fired.
And then it would have been a war.
The presence of Arkhipov on board by mere chance meant that his approval was also required though, and he stood alone and disagreed against the peer pressure of his fellow officers. Eventually they relented, and desperate for air after being underwater for so long, they resurfaced and returned back to the Soviet.
How long is so long? I mean, back in 1962, I don't know how the capabilities of the submarines, but like nowadays, I think there are some submarines that can go underwater like legit for a month. I was watching something recently and I heard that. I'm like, that's kind of crazy. You go underwater for a month?
Union. But had things gone differently, if Arkhipov made a different
I think this must have been the story I was thinking of. Or it has to have been. But then again, I thought, I don't know. I know it might be or it might just be something similar to the one I was thinking of.
decision, whether he fell into peer pressure or if he simply chose a different submarine to be present on, you probably wouldn't exist, and neither would the internet or probably anything else that you know. That 5-kiloton torpedo was about 1/3 the power of the Hiroshima bomb, and it probably would have destroyed most of that American naval squadron, killing thousands of American sailors and destroying a dozen ships, including an aircraft carrier. Under the tense atmosphere that was already present, it's believable to assume that the Americans would have responded by launching a nuclear strike of their own against Cuba and maybe even the USSR.
Yeah, it's called retaliation. You know, you get a whole bunch of your guys nuked. Not hard to believe there would be some retaliation involved, you know? Kind of reminds me of playing Civ 5 or 6. I think that's a new one. That's the one I got recently, and I was playing it. And in it, like, I was trying to take over the world. So I'd taken over a big continent, and I was going after another big continent. And so I had submarines everywhere with nukes, and I launched like, I don't know, it must have been like 30 nukes on this continent, and the whole thing was just wiped. And yeah, it's basically uninhabitable at that point with the amount of radiation.
Leading down the path to apocalypse and an early real-life version of Fallout.
That was crazy. Do they teach this in school? Because I don't particularly remember that ago. It was a while I was in high school. But I don't particularly remember them teaching this, but they might have, I don't know. But that's really cool. Like, I was not aware of this. But as I said, you know, I had heard a story of something similar to this, where they thought they were getting nuked, and they decided not to, you know, retaliate. Now, I don't know if that was the situation or if it was a different one. But yeah, nonetheless, this was really cool. I enjoyed this video a lot. I hope you guys did as well. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're new, and subscribe to join the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. That link's in the description. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to What If Earth Started Rotating Backwards Right Now by Real Life Lore. Now, I personally don't know what would happen, but I know the Earth's spinning at like a really fast rate you know, every second. And if it were to all of a sudden just reverse, you know, and not have any time to slow down and then reverse, just automatically reverse, I think we would all go flying in, like, the direction we were initially spinning in, just because of, I forget what it's called, but, you know, if you're moving in a certain direction, you know, if you're lying on top of a car and it's going at, like, 100 miles an hour, and the car stops, you're still gonna go flying off of it because you're still traveling at the initial rate of the car. If that makes sense. I forget what it's called, but I assume that would happen with the Earth, but I guess we're gonna find out. Anyway, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
Right now, as you're listening to my voice and watching this video, you're flying around in space at a speed you probably don't realize because of the way the Earth rotates. If you're standing on the equator, then you'd be traveling at a speed of 1,670 kilometers per hour from west to east.
What's that in miles? Like, I don't know, what the freak, what's the conversion? Either way, that's like definitely over 1,000 miles an hour, which that's really freaking fast.
Or counterclockwise, as viewed from above the North Pole. Every planet in the solar system rotates in this direction, except for Uranus and Venus. So, Earth has been rotating pretty normally, all things considered. But we know that it's gradually slowing down at a rate of about 2.3 milliseconds per century. Therefore,
2.3 milliseconds per, what, 100 years? That's nothing. That's nothing. Milliseconds, not even seconds.
or a day on Earth today in 2019 is roughly 2 milliseconds shorter than a day was back in 1919. Eventually, billions of years from now, Earth will cease rotating entirely, but Earth will probably never begin rotating in the opposite direction like Venus does. But just for fun, what would happen if it did, like, right now? The easy answer is that everybody would probably just die from whiplash and getting flung around.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest answer. Is that all of a sudden getting thrown in the opposite direction? People would just fly. It would be so bad. Also, the waves. The ocean is also traveling at that same speed. But if you were all of a sudden reverse it, the waves that would happen would be like tsunami. That'd be insane tsunamis. Like it would wipe out everything.
At thousands of kilometers per hour if it just happened immediately. But that's kind of boring, so let's imagine in fantasy land that nobody dies and it just starts happening. How would society and your daily life be affected? Let's start with the immediate effects. Every satellite in orbit right now would be immediately obsolete because they're functioning on the assumption that, something stupid like this won't happen. Imagine if every satellite was orbiting Earth in the wrong direction, and that's the consequence that we'd be dealing with. So GPS and cell services would probably be pretty majorly disrupted for a while. Time zones as we know them would also be pretty messed up. Humanity rather arbitrarily drew lines across.
I don't know if time zones would be that messed up. Yeah, because time zones are based on like these lines coming down. Each of these is a time zone, I think. And this would still be the same, right? The Earth would be spinning a different direction, but these lines would still be here. So I don't know.
The Earth surface and decided that this mess is how we measure time across the planet. Under the current system, a new day begins at 12 a.m. just to the west of the international dateline here, and continues
why is it so squiggly?
Westward for 24 hours until reaching the eastern side of the dateline on the other side, once Earth makes an entire rotation. If Earth pulled a switcheroo and began rotating in the opposite direction, this would completely change.
It doesn't have to change. If we created the lines, we can just keep them there, right? It can all stay the same. I don't think this has anything to do.
The sun would rise in the west and set in the east, and the time of day would...
Oh, I guess that's true. So that would change everything. Oh, well. I was gonna say, you can keep the times the same. However, you'd be getting up at weird hours of the day, and everything would be different, but you can keep the times the same.
Therefore, have to flow from the east of the international dateline. The first big cities to celebrate the new year would be Honolulu and Anchorage, while North America would be the first continent, and New Zealand would be the last significantly populated place to get a chance to celebrate. But a lot more would change on the surface of Earth over time than just, well, time. The seasons of Earth wouldn't change because those are determined by Earth's axial tilt and not her rotation. However, Earth's climate would gradually change over time dramatically because that is influenced by her rotation. As the planet rotates, the push and pull of its sheer momentum decides the direction of the ocean's currents. Along with atmospheric wind flows, this...
Yeah, I'm just saying if the Earth were to turn the opposite direction, you know, all of a sudden it would create such huge tsunamis because the water would then be also traveling in the wrong direction. So it would go like, wow. It'd be horrible. But I guess, yeah, if the water didn't do that and just laid normal, I don't know what would happen.
This is what produces the range of climate patterns that we see across the Earth's surface. If you change the direction of Earth's rotation, all of this changes in some pretty wild ways. Let's talk about Europe first. One of the most important ocean currents in the world is the Gulf Stream, which carries warm ocean water from the Gulf of Mexico and Florida up to Western Europe. Combined with the jet stream winds, which carry clouds and rainwater from Canada to Northern Europe, the European continent in our normal spinning world is a warmer and wetter place than it otherwise would be. If Earth's rotation reversed, this would be totally different. Based on a computer simulation that was run in 2018,
someone actually did a computer simulation of this? Why? I mean, sure, it's interesting, but it's like, why? It just seems like a waste of time.
The European Geosciences Union General Assembly, Western Europe would be a much colder and snowier place that would be about 10 degrees Celsius lower on average, and would more resemble the climate of Russia today, while the UK
Oh boy, that'd be rough.
and Ireland would be really, really colder and would more resemble northern Alaska and Canada. These changes would take place gradually over time, but would be quick on a geological timescale. The computer simulation produced these results after only 7,000 years into the future. But every other
Oh, that's still a long time.
continent in the world would suffer from extreme climate change as well, perhaps none more so than Africa and the Middle East. With changing wind patterns and ocean currents shifting to North Africa
Well, would they all of a sudden be like really cold?
in the Middle East, the deserts would disappear. The entire Sahara would vanish, replaced by a dense green forest that would stretch across the entire Middle East as well.
That'd be interesting to see because although, like, let's say it does get really cold or whatever, there's still no grass seed there or tree seed. It'd still all be just dirt, like dust, dirt. Even though if it could grow stuff, if there are no seeds for stuff to grow, it's not gonna grow. So it might just be, instead of a desert, it might be cold or a nice climate, but at the same time, I don't know if anything would actually be growing there. Or it would take a long time, because this would eventually creep upwards, right? But it would take so long for it to creep up to cover this whole area.
North Africa and the Middle East would more resemble the climates of France and Germany today, with milder climates and a lot of rainfall. The Mediterranean Sea would almost become a freshwater lake with a tremendously increased amount of rainfall in the area. The outback desert in Australia also vanishes under these conditions, replaced with a vast interior steppe.
Sounds like it almost benefits a lot of people. Like, sure, a couple countries get really cold, but you compare them to the size of, like, the countries that are benefiting from, like, the desert turning into all green. Like, it seems like it would almost be better?
Interestingly, it appears that the climates of Western and Eastern Australia will switch places, with more grasslands and rainfall in the west and more arid steppes in the east.
Oh, maybe it doesn't, maybe it doesn't help that much.
Pretty much every major desert in the world today vanishes, but new deserts pop up in some unexpected areas where they haven't ever existed before. Like, for example, North America. The entire southern US, from Texas to Florida to North Carolina, is transformed into a vast, hot, arid desert that resembles the climate of Iraq or Saudi Arabia today.
Okay, I was saying, oh, well, this change might be good, but then seeing as it would also wipe out a lot of other goods, so yeah, maybe it's just, maybe it balances everything out, you know?
West Coast, on the other hand, gets significantly colder and snowier and more resembles the climate of Quebec today. South America also changes dramatically. The new largest desert in the world is located here across modern-day Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. This great South American desert effectively becomes the new world's
Is this all the computer simulation said would happen?
Sahara, with another vast desert in the north covering much of Colombia, Venezuela, and Guyana. South America becomes the world's most desert-covered continent, with what remains of the Amazon rainforest in between. And finally, there's Asia. India mostly remains the same, while China changes significantly. A vast desert similar to the Gobi in Mongolia pops up across the entire southeast. Much of Southeast Asia surrounding this desert, like northern Vietnam, becomes an arid steppe. Manchuria becomes a warmer place with...
What's an arid steppe? Is that a desert, or what the frick is an arid steppe? I don't know.
forests and rain, while Kamchatka in Russia weirdly transforms into a pretty mild place, with a lot less cold and snow than the rest of Russia. If the world started spinning backwards today, everything about our way of lives, from time to geography, would change dramatically. With less desert coverage overall, global temperatures will cool slightly by about 0.2
Oh, so it'd actually be better for there'd be less desert. So maybe it would be better in the end. I don't know.
degrees Celsius. It's impossible to predict exactly what kind of an influence this would have on history. I'll leave that discussion down for the comments.
Well, history is history. That's not going to change, you know? You can't change the past. The past is going to be the same, but the future, who knows?
But either way, it's fascinating to think about how a seemingly simple thing like the direction of Earth's rotation can have such an enormous impact on both history and society.
Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. I think it's really cool. But yeah, if the Earth were to just all of a sudden start turning backwards, one, everything would fly, all the people would fly in the direction they were initially going. Right? And everything on Earth would boom. And the oceans, which were also traveling in a certain direction, if the Earth were all of a sudden spin backwards, the oceans, it would cause massive, like, tidal waves, and it would wipe out, like, everything. But, anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're new, hit subscribe to the family. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore as well. And, yeah, I like this. I think I'd rate it out of a 10, probably at, like, maybe a 7. But, yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to how one man survived being lost 438 days at sea by RealLifeLore. Now, I think RealLifeLore makes really cool videos, and this title really like got my attention. How do you survive 438 days at sea? Like, especially without any fresh water, because you can't drink seawater, otherwise you'll dehydrate yourself, right? Because of the salt in the seawater. So your body has to use its own water to filter out the salt that's in seawater. Anyway, I'm intrigued. Hope this be quite awesome. The original link's in the description, and yeah, without any further ado, let's begin.
The Pacific Ocean is mind-bogglingly big. If you started here off the coast of northern Chile and dug a hole straight through the earth and came out on the other side, you'd discover that you'd still be in the Pacific Ocean in the South China Sea. The Pacific covers about 1/3 of...
Wait, what? So if you dug a hole straight through from there to the other side, you'd be in the sea. Okay.
Earth's entire surface, and it's bigger than all of the land on Earth combined. Except for a few scattered islands, it's also mostly empty, which means that if you're ever unfortunate enough to get lost here, there's a very good chance that nobody will ever find you.
Thanks for the hope.
Which makes the story of Jose Salvador Alvarenga and his rescue all the more fascinating. He currently holds a world record that he achieved on accident and that probably nobody wants to beat. The longest time spent being lost at sea. Against all odds, he somehow survived being lost for 438 days in the...
430, like, I can't fathom being stuck 438 days on the sea. I mean, the only positive side to that is that it'd give you a lot of time to make up new sea shanties.
The Pacific, so his record probably won't be beaten anytime soon. But how did he do it? The answers lie in how his misadventure began. In 2012, Alvarenga was an experienced fisherman in Mexico. On November 17th, he and another guy named Ezequiel Cordoba departed together on their small fishing boat from the tiny fishing village of Costa Azul on the Mexican Pacific.
Oh, well, at least you know he was a fisher, so I guess he could get food that way. Wait, so just he ate raw fish for like a year? He better have taken some like anti-parasitic medication or whatever when he got rescued, because you can guarantee he had some kind of parasites in him from that.
Coast. They planned to only work for a 30-hour fishing shift, so their boat was pretty small and not at all equipped for the nightmare.
That's what their boat looked like?
It was basically a canoe with no roof or cabin, was only 7 meters long, and only had one small motor and a refrigerator for storing their fish. They knew that a storm was coming near the area, but fishermen in these parts of Mexico can earn enough money in a day to support themselves for an entire week.
Wow. Wait, they can work for a day and then they can support themselves for a week? I think that's everyone's dream. Just work 1 day a week and the rest of the time you get off.
So they decided to take their chances and traveled 120 kilometers away from the coast to work. At 1 a.m., the storm hit them and was threatening to sink their boat. In a panic, the two men cut their fishing lines and dropped everything they catch and most of
Oh my goodness, they cut their fishing line. They don't even have anything to fish anymore? They don't have anything to fish?
their gear overboard to make themselves more maneuverable. They were 6 hours away from the coast, so they traveled through the storm and the night in a desperate attempt to get back. By 7 a.m., they were only 24 kilometers away from the coast and could see mountains on the horizon. But then, awful luck struck them and their motor died. Without any paddles, oars, or sails.
Yeah, you always gotta go out with, like, paddles, you know? Don't trust engines.
The unusually strong wind began pushing their boat back out towards the ocean. Their onboard radio still thankfully worked, however, so they frantically reported their position to their boss, who responded saying that he was coming, but their battery died and all they heard afterwards was silence. Imagine the frustration that they must have both felt in that moment as their radio
It'd be freaking terrifying.
died and all
Little do they know, this is just... Wait, if one guy was rescued and one guy lived 438 days, I think we can assume that one of them does not live.
all contact with the outside world with it. And as they watched the mountains in the horizon that they were so close to slowly disappear, as their boat that they were trapped on gradually was pushed back out into the vast abyss. Their boss did organize a search party that looked for them for days, but as their boat drifted further out into
Did they not bring like cell phones with them or something? If they had a cell phone, this is what, 2012 or 2013. If they just had a cell phone, they could probably I don't know if a cell phone would work that far out. You know, that's many miles without a cell phone tower, so maybe it wouldn't even work that way. Never mind then.
the vastness of the Pacific, it got harder and harder, so they eventually were forced to give up. Just 5 days later, the winds had already blown them 450 kilometers off
280 miles out.
the coast before finally settling down. They were surrounded by nothing but ocean in every direction, and their boat was so small they knew that they probably would never be spotted from the air. They had no flare gun or any other way to signal for help other than by waving, so they knew that their chances of survival were going to be slim. They had no supplies left on board.
Yeah, because they chucked them all out. I don't think chucking them out, like the supplies out, was a good idea. Like that just seems crazy. Because like they should have. What did they have a fishing pole? Did they throw that out too? Like you should have at least kept something to catch fish. You know, always hope for the best but expect the worst. And they should have hoped that they would have gone to land, but expected that they wouldn't have gone to land, and they should have kept something in case they didn't. But they didn't.
So they were forced to catch tiny fish or birds that landed on their boat with their bare hands for food. They
Why would a fish land on their boat?
grabbed plastic bottles that they found floating nearby them and used them to collect rainwater for drinking water. But during long periods of no rain, they were forced to mostly drink the blood of turtles that they caught with their
What?
hands or their own urine. Imagine going day
Blood of turtles. That's some next level hardcore.
after day, month after month in a tiny box with only one other person to talk to, and the only other ways to entertain yourselves being catching fish or napping. It's easy to understand how somebody
How sunburnt were they by the end of this?
could go insane under these conditions, which, according to Alvarenga's story, his friend did. The other guy, Cordoba, gave up hope about 4 months into their isolation and became suicidal. He got sick from all of the raw food that they were eating and refused to eat.
Well, someone got sick from the raw food. I'm surprised the other guy didn't get sick from it. Like, fish have parasites. That's why a lot of, like, sushi, if it's not frozen properly, the parasites can actually, like, go in you and, like, survive. But normally when the fish are frozen, it'll actually kill the parasites. You'll still eat the parasites, but they won't be alive. But if it's not frozen properly, there's a high chance you can get parasites. And I'm surprised both of them didn't die from eating raw fish for over a year.
And eventually starved to death. Alvarenga was then all alone in the middle of nowhere with no other human in sight as far as the horizon could see, a tiny speck inside of the enormous Pacific. And as you can see from this shipping map, the Central Pacific where he was somewhere at is a very quiet part of the world.
He's just in the middle of it all. He's in the middle of nothing.
Ships rarely come through this area, but even still, he claims to have encountered one when he was alone. A cargo ship apparently passed right by him and 4 men on board spotted him and waved, but they just kept moving past.
What? I was gonna say, well, you know, these cargo ships, the odds of someone seeing you from it are very little, or very low, because you're in the middle of nowhere. People aren't just gonna be looking out. People are gonna be doing their own stuff inside the cargo ship. But 4 people saw you and they just waved and that's it? Oh my goodness.
Him and never even bothered to stop. Imagine how frustrated you would have been again if you were lost for months. You were all alone and you finally spotted rescue, but they just ignored you and kept on moving.
Were they just ignorant to his situation? Were they just not aware of what was going on? I find that so hard to believe that they just waved and then kept going. Like, did they know he was stranded? I'm like, ha, look at that sucker. Let's keep going. Like, what was the thought process?
11 months in, and Alvarenga had traveled about 8,000 kilometers across the ocean in
5,000 miles.
boat. His clothes were shredded, and he only had a sweatshirt to protect himself against the sun. But finally, on the 30th of January 2014, he spotted coconuts bobbing around his boat and birds landing around him. He knew that land was near, and after drifting some more,
You should grab the coconuts, man. Like, you can get some water from it or something.
he discovered an island that appeared to be uninhabited. It took him half a day just to drift near the shore when he finally jumped out of his boat and left its safety for the first time in over a year. He swam ashore and discovered a house, and when he knocked, he made contact with the first other humans since he left his village in Mexico 438 days ago,
That's wild.
traveling nearly 11,000 kilometers. To put into perspective just how far away that is, imagine starting in a tiny boat in Lisbon, Portugal, and traveling less than 1 mile per hour until you drifted across the land to Hiroshima, Japan. Alvarenga ended up washing ashore on the Avon Atoll, which is the southern tip of the Marshall Islands and one of the most remote spots on the planet. Had he missed this spot, the next likely stop for him would have been the Philippines, nearly 5,000 more
That's another almost half a year or something.
kilometers away. And since it took him 438 days to travel roughly 11,000 kilometers, it probably would have taken him about 240 more days to hit the Philippines. Fortunately for him though, he somehow landed on this tiny speck in the middle of the biggest ocean on Earth and got himself rescued because of it. Later, he was
That's a crazy story.
flown back to his home in El Salvador, where he published a book and got himself sued by the family of his friend who died on the boat, because they claim that he probably ate him.
I was actually kind of thinking that, you know? I didn't mention it because I thought it was a little bit gruesome, but, you know, did he eat the guy who was sick? But then again, I was thinking, if the guy was sick, why would you eat him? Because then, you know, the sickness that's in him, especially if he's not cooked, you would get the sickness logically, you know? So at the same time, I'm like, did he really eat him? Because that you're risking getting yourself in that position too, you know?
So, the lesson is, even if you survive more than a year stranded at sea, you could still end up getting sued over something that you may or may not have actually done while you were out there. But if you're like me and the ocean terrifies you so much that you'll never actually go, but you want to learn more about the terrifying
Yeah, I don't like the ocean either. I don't know. Like, some of it intrigues me. You know, I like the idea of kind of like an Assassin's Creed Black Mask situation where you're on a pirate boat. I love that. But yeah, I don't like the ocean. Just like this, where you can't see anything. That's kind of terrifying. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. I think this is pretty crazy. The fact that he survived off of, like, since they didn't have water for a portion of it, they had to drink turtle's blood and urine. First off, how many turtles were around you that was just like a resource that you decided to use? Like, maybe one turtle here or there I could see being possible, but what the frig? Were they just swimming under your boat or something? And then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna grab another turtle. Time for a little snack. I don't understand. You know, whatever. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you guys go subscribe to RealLifeLore if you enjoyed this. The original links in the description. And if you're new, subscribe to the family. And yeah, I think I'll rate this out of a 10. I think this is really cool. I'd rate this like a 7. But yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop.
The only way you would ever see this
There we-
thing is with a flashlight.
I was like, am I gonna get jump scared? Kind of. Yeah, look at that. Freaking creepy. What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm gonna be reacting to "The Ocean is Way Deeper Than You Think" by Real Life Lore. Now, I'm pretty sure the ocean, like the Marianas Trench or the Marianas Trench, is as deep as, like, isn't it as deep as Mount Everest if Mount Everest was turned upside down in the ocean? I think that's how deep it is. Something like that. It's really freaking deep. But, you know, besides that, I don't know what we're getting into here, but I know a lot of creepy things are down in the depths. So maybe we get to see some creepy animals in this. I hope so. Because although they're creepy, they're kind of cool. Anyway, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
The ocean is really deep. Deeper, in fact, than most of us realize. If you were to shave off all of the land from the tops of every continent and island in the world and fill...
Wait. Shave off... What?
If you were to shave off all of the land from the tops of every continent and island in the world and fill up the ocean's deepest points with that land, then the entire Earth would be covered in an ocean 2 miles deep. 3/4...
Oh, okay, I get it. So if you were to, it's basically if you were to, like, even it out, right? You take off the highland, put it down there, okay. I think I got a hold of what she's trying to say. Man! It's gonna be a rough video if my brain's not working this well.
Earths of our planet is already covered in water, though, and it goes a lot deeper than just 2 miles. Let's start with a sense of scale. This dot right here is the size of an average human. This slightly larger dot is the size of an elephant, and this is the size of the largest ship ever built, the Knock Nevis. With that in mind, let's start going underwater and see what we find out. The first milestone is at 40 meters below the surface, which is the maximum depth allowed for recreational scuba diving. A little further down at 93 meters is
what is that in feet?
Where the wreck of the Lusitania was discovered. Just slightly deeper than that at 100 meters is where diving can become seriously fatal if you're not careful because of decompression sickness. But that didn't stop a man named Herbert Nitsch to accomplish the free diving world record at a depth of 214 meters. This guy swam down to this level with just one single breath. But a little...
One single breath? How long would that take you to get down and then get back up? Like, you'd think by that... Like, you'd have to have some crazy lungs to hold your breath that long. I don't know how you could do that.
A little further down at 332 meters, we have the scuba diving world record, which was accomplished by another man named Ahmed Gabir. If he had swam down another 111 meters, then he would have reached the height of the Empire State Building if it was submerged underwater. And a little further than that at 500 meters...
It's pretty freaking deep.
Below the surface, we arrive at the maximum dive depth of blue whales, the largest creatures on the planet and also the limit of the U.S. Seawolf-class nuclear submarine. At 535 meters, we can witness the maximum dive depth of emperor penguins, and this is when we
Penguins go that deep? That's like 1,500 feet.
Must bring up the intensity of water pressure. At this level below the surface, the water pressure exerted on a person, or the penguins, would be roughly equivalent to a polar bear standing on a quarter. So further down the depths, at 830 meters, would be the height of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the tallest building in the world. Once we hit 1,000 meters below the surface, we begin to enter the scary zone.
Oh boy, this is where the fun starts. The scary zone. This is where all the... I think as soon as you get to the point where all the lights, like the light doesn't travel that far into the water, that's when all the weird creatures are around. This is the cool stuff.
From the surface can no longer reach beyond this point, so the rest of the ocean below is shrouded in permanent darkness. On top of that, the water pressure you would experience at this point would be about the same as if you were standing on the surface of the planet Venus, meaning that you would die very quickly. You would also meet the giant squid at this sea level if the water pressure didn't already kill you. At 1,280 meters, we reach the maximum depth dived to by the leatherback.
I thought light couldn't get down here. This is freaking pretty bright if you ask me. Also, where's all the weird creatures? This is a freaking turtle. This is not what I expected.
Sea turtle, and further down at 1,828 meters we would reach the deepest part of the Grand Canyon were it to be underwater with us. Down at 2,000 meters we start to encounter some of the more terrifying sea creatures.
Oh, here we go. This is the good stuff.
like the ominously named black dragonfish, a carnivorous beast with a stomach that doesn't allow light to be emitted through it. Meaning that since we're in total darkness underwater at this point, the only way you would ever see this thing is with a flashlight.
I was like, am I gonna get jump scared? Kind of. Yeah, look at that. Freaking creepy.
A little further down, at 2,250 meters, we would reach the maximum depth dived to by both sperm whales and the very frightening colossal squid. Sperm whales often have sucker marks and scars left on their bodies from battles with the colossal squid that likely take place at these incredible depths. The squids themselves can grow.
Why would they go down that deep if they know they got enemies down there? Just, you know, go a little bit higher and avoid them, right?
To be 14 meters long and weigh up to 750 kilograms with eyes the size of a dinner plate and razor-sharp sickles in the middle of their tentacles. Further down at 3,800 meters we can find the wreck of the RMS Titanic. And a bit past that, at 4,000 meters, we start to enter the abyssal zone of the ocean. And there are numerous strange, almost alien-like creatures that inhabit these depths, such as the fangtooth, anglerfish, and viperfish.
See, this is what I mean. Look, it's so freaking bizarre. Look at this. But it's also kind of cool at the same time.
Down at 4,267 meters is the average depth of the ocean where you would normally expect to hit the floor, but there are parts of the ocean that go significantly deeper than even this. Way down at 6,000 meters is the beginning of the Hadal Zone, named after the underworld Hades itself. The water pressure down at these depths can become 1,100 times what you would experience way back on top at the surface, which is roughly equal to an elephant balancing on a postage stamp or a single person carrying the weight of 50 Boeing 747 jumbo jets.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that you're not going to be able to survive if you were to go down there.
Down at these depths, you would be crushed immediately without any outside protection, but life still exists.
Well, would you look at that? I was right.
Down here in various strange forms. At 6,500 meters, we reach the maximum depth that the DSV Alvin can dive to, a popular research submarine that helped to discover the Titanic. Way further down at 8,000.
Where did all the weird jellyfish come out? Because I know they have a lot of weird jellyfish where they're all like, oh, they got crazy like colors and stuff on them. They do some weird stuff, and I know they're in the dark area, right? But where are they? Because I don't know exactly where. And, you know, I would hope you would at least mention them at some point in this.
848 meters below the surface, and we have arrived at the height of Mount Everest.
Okay, there's Mount Everest. It's not as... Okay, I was expecting it to be the, you know, the deepest, but I guess it's not.
Upside down and placed underwater. And then, way further past even that, at 10,898 meters, we arrive at the depth reached by James Cameron in 2012 during the Deep Sea Challenger mission. The deepest point in the ocean yet reached by humans was back in 1960, though, when two men named Don Walsh and
1960? How could people back then, you know, get deeper than us? Because, you know, way back then they didn't have the technology we have now.
Jacques Piccard reached a depth of 10,916 meters using their Trieste submarine. It took them 5 hours to descend through the ocean to this depth, and they only stayed for 20 minutes before a window cracked and they began to resurface. Just a bit further down from there...
How did they do that? This was back in 1960. This is a long friggin' time ago. This is what, 50 some years ago? How did they do that? But we couldn't even get that deep in 2012.
We're at 10,972 meters, and we reached the average flight altitude of a commercial airliner. Finally, when we hit 10,994 meters, we have hit the bottom of the known ocean, called the Challenger Deep, right here on this map, just about 300 kilometers southwest of Guam Island. However, it is believed that there are almost certainly even deeper parts of the ocean than this that just haven't been discovered yet.
I hope we get to discover them someday, because I think that'd be crazy seeing how deep they could go, you know, potentially. And also, like, who knows what kind of fish and animals are down there, right? Because I think only like 10% of the ocean's been discovered, something like that. It's a really small amount. So there's an entire insane amount that has not been discovered yet, and that's I think it'd be interesting to see what's you know, what's there.
It wasn't until 1997, after all, that the Sirena Deep was discovered with a depth of 10,732 meters, making it the second deepest known point in the ocean. It is estimated that only about 5% of the ocean's floor
5% has been explored. Okay, I thought it was like 10%.
Has been accurately mapped, leaving the other 95% to be currently a mystery. It may be only a matter of time before an even deeper part of our ocean is found, and who knows what we may discover there.
That's crazy, that's crazy. I would love to know how deep it could go. Could you imagine if all the oceans dried up? Like, this is not a good scenario, but, you know, if they did, Could you imagine what it would look like? Just how deep and how far it could go down. It'd be like the Grand Canyon, but like everywhere. That'd be something to see. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. This is awesome. I'm sad I didn't get to see the jellyfish because for those of you who don't know, there's some crazy weird looking jellyfish really down deep. And I was kind of hoping that I'd see them in this because I think they're really cool, but we didn't get to see them. But nonetheless, I like this and I hope you did too. And if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you're new, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. And that being said, see you guys next time. Boop. What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx, and today I'm going to be reacting to what is the farthest away thing you can see by Real Life Lore. Now, that is a really good question. What is the farthest away thing you can see? Now, I don't know, but like we can see the sun, right? So I assume that has to be up there for some of the farthest, because that's, you know, I don't even know how many thousands of miles that is, right? But you have the sun, that is really far away. But you can also see stars, which I know are a lot farther away than the sun. And a star, you know, that's light years away, so you can see them. So I don't know how far we can see away, but I assume the stars must be towards the top of, you know, the range of how far we can see. So I don't know, it's gonna be interesting to see the answer here. But with that being said, I hope you guys like this. This is by Real Life Lore, who makes really cool videos, so make sure you go subscribe to Real Life Lore. And without any further ado, let's begin.
Limits of human vision is an interesting thing. If you're
Is that what the human eye looks like, that close? What?
fortunate enough to
Oh, that looks so cool. Is that really what the eye looks like that close up, or is this like animated or something? Because I can tell you, when I look in the mirror, if I look at my eye, it's not doing this.
have 20/20 eyesight, it means that you can clearly read a small row of text from 20 feet away. But the best recorded vision in humans is 20/10 eyesight, which means that these extremely lucky people can see things clearly at 20 feet away as if they were only 10 feet away for the normal person.
Oh, wow.
Everybody sees the world a little bit differently than everybody else does, and I mean that literally, not only in terms of clarity or blurriness, but also in terms of just how much can be viewed. If we took you right now and placed you in the middle of the ocean on a clear day with nothing to obstruct your view,
I think, okay, I've heard that doing this, you can see 40 miles, I believe.
you'd probably be able to see in every direction for around 5 kilometers, but that can change.
Okay, well, I guess, I guess I was wrong. I heard if there's nothing in your way, you can see for 40 miles, but maybe that was a lie.
Depending on your height. The limit to your own personal visibility of the world is determined by two things: the curvature of the Earth's surface and how high up your eyes are that are doing the viewing. That's because the higher up your eyes are, the more of the Earth's surface you can see before it curves away from you. The average American male is 5 feet 9.5 inches tall, which allows a visible range of about 3 miles in every direction from sea level. The average American woman is 5 feet 4 inches tall though, which puts a slight negative modifier on their viewing range, so it becomes about 2.8 miles.
So does that mean that this this whole video is going to be based off of the individual's height, because it's going to be unique for every individual person? Or are we going to use like just an average and go off of that?
That's not a huge variation, but radical height differences can cause that. At 7'1", Shaq has a higher visible range of 3.3 miles, and Vern Taylor, at only 2 feet 8 inches, had a visible range limit
2 feet?
limited to only 2 miles. However, Robert Pershing Wadlow, the tallest human to have ever existed, at 8 feet 11 inches tall,
8'11". Is this the size of an average person right here? Oh my goodness, 8 feet 11. That's crazy. That would suck being that tall. I think a lot of people who are that tall have a lot of like bone and joint problems. Oh man, that'd be horrible being that tall.
had a massive visual
Girls on Tinder want guys like this tall.
range of 3.7 miles, probably the furthest of any human who has ever lived. If all of these people were standing on a flat boat in the middle of the ocean, Robert would be able to see another boat emerging from the horizon 1.7 miles further out than Vern Taylor could possibly see it. But of course you can actually see things further away than just a few miles. You only need to get your eyes further up into the sky.
Yeah, like you can see the sun and the stars.
One of the tallest observation decks anywhere in the world is inside the Burj Khalifa in Dubai.
Oh, are we still talking about seeing stuff on Earth, or just how far you can see stuff away, distance-wise? Because if you can see stars in that has to be the furthest you can see. But yeah, if you're talking about just on Earth, then it all would just be your height.
Dubai at 555 meters up. From all the way up here, your line of sight extends out to 84 kilometers in addition to whatever you can see based on your personal height. This is so high up that it becomes possible to see the coast of Iran all the way across the Persian Gulf under optimal conditions. It's also so high up that it causes some other weird situations. Up on the higher levels, it becomes possible to see the sun setting several minutes after it's already set on the surface. Once again,
Oh, yeah, I believe that. Just because you're higher up, right? It makes complete sense.
and because of the Earth's curvature and your viewing perception from so high up allows you to see further around that curvature. This has led some local Islamic clerics in Dubai to rule that those living above the 80th floor in the building should wait 2 additional minutes before breaking their Ramadan fast, and those living above the 150th floor should wait.
Wait, people actually live in the tower? I always wondered what that tower was for. I thought it was like a business tower or something. I wasn't aware it was an actual place you could like live in, you know? I mean, I guess the developer, you know, gotta make their money back somehow.
3 additional minutes to give the sun more time to actually set for them. In fact, being near the Burj Khalifa actually allows you to witness the sunset twice in the same day. I don't know what that means for Ramadan, so let me know in the comments, but essentially you could watch the sunset happen on the surface, and then take the elevator up to the observation deck, which is fast enough that you could get all the way up to the top and witness the sunset happen all over again. Similarly to buildings, being high up on mountains or hills can also increase how far away you can actually see something on the Earth's surface. In theory, standing atop the summit of Mount Everest should give the largest field of view anywhere in the world out up to 340 kilometers in every direction.
210 miles. That's crazy.
If Mount Everest was in the middle of Germany, that would give you the ability to see over roughly the entire country. But
Whoa. Wait, 210 miles? That's as big as Germany is, like, from one side to the other? 210 miles? That's not that far. Like, you compare that to the US. US is, what, thousands of miles across? So I guess Germany is a lot smaller.
Everest is kind of surrounded by other mountains, which spoils the view. The longest line of sight that anybody can achieve on Earth is by standing atop the summit of Dankova in Kyrgyzstan and gazing a ludicrous 538 kilometers away to the Hindu Tog
344 miles.
mountain pass in China. This is only possible to see under the right weather circumstances, but nowhere else on the planet
Wait, we're not going to get a picture? I want to see a picture from here to here.
is it possible to see something else with your naked eyes that's over 500 kilometers away. For reference, that would be like standing in New York City and being able to see Toronto, or standing in Los Angeles and being able to see Sacramento, or for a European comparison, standing in London and being able to see either Edinburgh or Cologne in Germany. But so far, we've only been talking about how far away you can see something.
Yeah, if you're in space, then you get to see a lot further. Like, if you're in the International Space Station, yeah, you can see all of this, right?
Something on Earth's surface. Your eyes can see things that are much, much further away when you turn them upwards towards space.
This is what I was originally talking about at the beginning of the video.
Most of the stars in the night sky that you can see are located within a few thousand light years away from you. A light year meaning the distance that light travels within 1 year. The furthest single object that your naked eye can see while on Earth is V762 Cass in the Cassiopeia constellation at 16,308 light years away. But much further away.
How far away is that in, like, feet? Because I don't think light years really gives justice to comparison, you know, towards, like, you know, miles or whatever. How many miles is that away?
Than that is the Andromeda Galaxy, a collection of objects which represents the furthest possible limit of your own naked eyesight into the cosmos. Andromeda is faintly visible without the need for a telescope at a massive distance of approximately 2.5 million light years away.
See, that's a lot, but if you tell me how many miles that is, I think that would definitely bring more perspective to the size.
For most of human history, this served as the furthest limit for our vision and perception of the universe, until the advancement of telescopes. Now we can see things that our ancestors never could have, like the galaxy GN-Z11 at 32 billion light years away from us.
See, that's crazy, but I wonder how many miles. I can't even fathom how many miles that would be.
Somewhat confusingly, you may remember from previous videos that I've made that the universe itself is only about 13.8 billion years old. The reason that GN-Z11 is 32 billion light years away is that it probably doesn't exist anymore. It's so far away from us that we're witnessing what it looked like 13.4 billion years ago because that's how long it's taken the light to reach us for us to observe it here on Earth. But this galaxy probably isn't at the edge of the universe. It's just impossible for us right now to see anything that's probably beyond it.
Is this with a telescope, right?
The universe is expanding quicker than the speed of light can move to catch up with it, which means that the light of objects more distant than GNZ 11 will never reach us here on Earth, which means that we'll never be able to see what lies beyond. This problem will become worse and worse as time goes on though, as the universe continues to expand. Eventually, sometime between 4 and 6 billion years from now, the only objects in the night sky that will remain visible on Earth if it still exists by then will be our own small local cluster of galaxies. The universe as we know it today that's filled with
This is so sad.
trillions of galaxies will be totally invisible and unknowable to civilizations of the future, which means that they may mistakenly think that the universe is much smaller than it actually is.
Well, they probably wouldn't. I don't think the human race is going to last that long. But, you know, if they do, they would have records, right? You know, the technology at that point would be so advanced, they would have records of what we could see at this point in time, right?
But we may think that ourselves. A few billion years ago, it was probably possible to see even more galaxies than we can currently see today, since the universe had an...
Look at that, that's beautiful. I wish I could see this kind of stuff at night, but there's so much light pollution around that you can't see any of these kind of stuff. You're lucky if you see a few stars. But, you know, if you go in the middle of nowhere where there's no light pollution, I think that's kind of on my bucket list to do. You know, I want to go to a place where there's no light pollution, so you can see all this kind of stuff at night. I think that'd be something to see. You know, that'd be something spectacular.
expanded quite as much. There's no telling what lies beyond the limit of what we can see in the universe, and we'll probably never know. It's a serious and unsolvable problem that will permanently affect humanity's collective vision.
Anyway, I think it's actually a really cool video. So I was kind of right that, you know, the furthest you can see away would be the stars. And obviously there is going to be one star that's the furthest away you can see with your naked eye. And yeah, I think this is actually really cool. I hope you guys liked it. I mean, I was always told that you know, on the ocean level or whatever, you could see like 40 miles away or something. But apparently it's only like 3 or 4 or 5 miles away or something like that. So yeah, I guess I was wrong there. But anyway, with that being said, if you like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're new, and subscribe to the family. I think I'd rate this video out of a 10, probably like, maybe a 6. It was a good video, I enjoyed it. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop. Oh, also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore if you enjoyed this.
And the first person alive today that takes advantage of it will become our society's first trillionaire. It could even be one of you watching this video.
Turn up, let's go.
Well guys, it looks like I'm going to be retiring because today we're going to find out how to become humanity's first trillionaire, and this is by Real Life Lore. So, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Hopefully this is going to be really interesting. I assume, I don't know, because the only, like, you know, Apple, the company, just became the world's first $1 trillion company. But that's a company, not a person, right? You know, the closest person is the Jeff Bezos from Amazon, who makes, I think I heard he makes like $100 million a day or something. Unfathomable. But, I mean, that's still a long way from a trillionaire, so yeah, I don't know. I do not know what to expect, but anyway, this is by Real Life Lore. Hopefully this is going to be awesome. The original link's in the description, and without any further ado, let's begin.
The wealthiest person in the world has a new face, and his name is Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
With a
what'd I
current net
say?
worth of $123.6 billion that is increasing all the time, he's on track to becoming the wealthiest person in modern human history. His title of wealthiest person in the world, though, may be broken sometime in the future by an industry that hasn't even really started yet, and by whoever gets heavily involved in
Space mining? That's what I'm getting from this. Because I know they talked about mining, like, asteroids and stuff, because those can supposedly have lots of, I don't know, diamonds, or I don't know what the frig's on them. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting from this right here.
this industry first. The industry that I'm talking about is
Yeah, it has to
mining,
be.
which has been talked about extensively by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson in video clips like this one.
The first trillionaire there'll ever be is the person who mines asteroids for their natural resources. I'm just saying.
To get a little more detail about why this will be the case, we need to understand why certain asteroids are valuable.
So it might be someone like Elon Musk, right? Because it has to be someone who has a freaking spaceship and stuff to get up there. So maybe Elon Musk. He already is like a billionaire, right? So all he has to do is, you know, just make some spaceships that can go to an asteroid. It's not that unfathomable, I guess.
Take the asteroid belt, for example, located between Mars and Jupiter. There are millions of asteroids located here that are together estimated to be worth over $700 quintillion. That's
What?
because several asteroids here contain enormous amounts of raw materials that are very rare back on Earth's surface, like gold, silver, palladium, and perhaps most interestingly, platinum. Just one platinum-rich asteroid could contain more platinum than humanity has ever mined in history, which, if introduced all at once, would almost certainly...
Yeah, that would crash the value of platinum if you were to introduce it all at once. Because all of a sudden you have an insane amount, so the value would drop, right? So you would have to introduce it really slowly, but still over time the value would drop. And I guess that's the same with all the other things you're mining out there. You know, if there's so much of it, the value, it drops so much, and then it's worth barely anything, so is it even worth going to in the first place? I don't know.
Crash the economic value of platinum. This would, however, greatly reduce the cost of nearly all electronic devices that we use. But it's not just platinum that future space miners will be after. A large asteroid with a diameter of 1 kilometer could contain 2 to 3 times the global production of iron-nickel ore, and the very large asteroid 16 Psyche could satisfy the entire global demand for nickel iron for several million years.
What?
Asteroids like these have the potential to give humanity a
What? Several million years? I think we need to mine these asteroids right now.
infinite supply of these incredibly valuable raw materials, and the corporations that are providing these infinite supplies will reap the tremendous financial returns. If you start one of these corporations, you may not even have to go as far out as the asteroid belt to find one that's valuable enough. Nearly 15,000 near-Earth asteroids, or NEAs, have been discovered with close orbits to Earth so far.
That doesn't sound good or safe. 15,000 potential life-threatening asteroids are flying around us.
Of these, the most valuable one identified so far is likely 162173 Ryugu, nearly 1 kilometer wide and estimated to be worth nearly $83 billion. This one asteroid is worth about the same as the entire Starbucks corporation is.
Starbucks is worth $83 billion?
And the Japanese government is sending a probe there that will return a valuable sample to Earth in December 2020.
Sample? Is the sample just like a little excuse as a way to mine it? Isn't sampling it basically mining, right? So, are they gonna be the first to mine it?
2020. That's because the next time the asteroid will be closest to Earth will be on December 29th, 2020, and then again on June 3rd, 2025. Any company started by anybody manages to get a mining operation set up on it could see profits of tens of billions of dollars. It could be a stepping stone out to the far more valuable asteroids out in the asteroid belt, where there have already been 711 asteroids discovered, estimated to be worth over $100 trillion each, making each
Wow.
the entire global GDP in 2014. The problem is, we're nowhere near capable of doing anything like this right now.
Yeah, we have to get to Mars first. Once you have a Mars colony set up, like, you know, Elon Musk is planning on doing that, right? I don't know when he's planning on doing it, but it's like within the next 10 years. Once you have a Mars colony set up, at that point you can send, you know, ships out to go and mine, and then when they're done mining, they'll come back to Mars. Something like that. See, that's feasible, but shipping people from Earth to the mine, that's over a year's worth of travel just to get there, right? So that doesn't seem reasonable.
Now, getting anything into space is expensive. This is being improved all the time, but even using the cheapest means right now aboard the new SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket still costs $90 million per launch. There's still the problem of how to actually mine metals on asteroids and bring them back to Earth in an efficient manner. One idea is to simply capture an asteroid with a space vehicle and tow it into a safe orbit above Earth. Once there, mining crews of...
That does not sound no, that's a bad idea. Because what if you miss it, and then it collapses into Earth, and like, wipes out a country or something, right? Like, that's a bad idea. Don't bring danger that close to home. That's crazy.
Humans and robots would take launches up and establish mining settlements looking for valuable material, and returning ships to Earth would bring those materials back down to be processed in factories and put into manufactured products. The idea of having a 1 kilometer wide asteroid orbiting so close to the Earth
is a horrifying.
Would be unnerving for a lot of people, but it's entirely...
And it would be so large, it's entirely legal, because it's in space, right? So there's no, like, laws or whatever up there. You know, something that big, you could probably see it in the air, right? Could you imagine just sitting there and all you see is this massive rock just over your head? And you're like, oh, frig me. Please not be today that it crashes.
Entirely legal for any US citizen to do this right now if they could. Interestingly, the law enables the ownership of resources taken from asteroids, but not the ownership of any actual asteroid as property. That means that if a corporation did...
So you can mine it and take whatever you mine, but you can't actually claim the asteroid for yourself?
Tow an asteroid into orbit around Earth and set up a mining operation there wouldn't be any laws to prevent anybody else from flying up there and setting up their own mining operation too. As resources on Earth become increasingly scarce though, we'll inevitably one day start to take the almost limitless resources that can be found in asteroids and elsewhere in space more seriously. And the first person alive today that takes advantage of it will become our society's first trillionaire. It could even be one of you watching this video.
Yeah, well, it's not gonna be me. That's for sure. Guess I'm not gonna be retiring anytime soon. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. It's pretty cool. This is pretty cool. And as I was saying that, you know, there's all this unlimited resources out there. Bringing it back would flood the market full of whatever resource it is, and the value would drop down so much that I don't know if it would be worth it. Because it's like the Mona Lisa painting, right? It's worth, I don't know, what, hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's only like one genuine one. Well, could you imagine if Da Vinci was like, alright, screw it, it's worth that much, let's paint 30 of them. All of a sudden there's so many, the value's gonna drop on them. So is it worth going out and mining stuff just to bring it back and then, you know, lose the value of everything you've mined? I don't know. That's up to whoever's gonna freaking mine them to decide, but that's something to think about. Anyway, if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you do it, subscribe and join the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore, and I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx today. I'm going to be reacting to how big do tsunamis get by Real Life Lore. I actually really like Real Life Lore's videos. I find them really interesting and quite cool. So hopefully this is going to be quite interesting. As far as how big tsunamis get, I don't know, but the thumbnail makes it look like they're as high as like the Empire State Building or something like that. Like they're freaking huge. Which, if that's true, I don't know. But with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
Tsunamis are some of the most powerful and deadliest forces of nature. Within recent memory, you may recall both the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami and 2011 Japan tsunami.
Yeah, I remember the 2011 one, and I believe from that one, there's like a bunch of YouTube videos showing like this weird sea monster thing or something swimming around when this happened. Like it was swimming around in the streets or something like that. It was really bizarre.
Both of which resulted in catastrophic damage and loss of life. The Indian Ocean tsunami happened after a massive earthquake struck here in the Indian Ocean. The earthquake itself released more energy than every single explosive detonated in the entire Second World War, including the nuclear bombs. The waves smashed into Indonesia, South Asia, and the east coast of Africa, punching as deep as 2 kilometers inland from the coast in some places. The tragedy claimed the lives of around 250,000 people, making
250,000 people?
it
Wow.
the deadliest tsunami in all of history, while the 2011 Japan tsunami was the costliest in terms of damage. That tsunami was also generated by an earthquake that created waves as high as 40.5 meters, just about 5 meters shorter than the Statue of Liberty, that came...
Wow.
slamming into the Japanese east coast, traveling up to 10 kilometers inland away from the coast. As you
6
can see
miles.
from photos like this that look like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, with what used to be a road stretching out into the endless ocean, the economic cost to Japan was enormous. An estimated $300 billion in damages was done.
Now that's a lot of damage!
More than the entire GDP of South Africa. But
I wonder if they've recovered fully from that yet, because I've no idea. 2011, that's what, 7 years ago now. So, I don't know, they might have, but I kind of doubt they've fully recovered.
these are what are called regular tsunamis, and there is an entire
That's a regular tsunami? That's just an everyday tsunami? What?
other class of gigantic waves that are simply called mega tsunamis. Unlike a regular tsunami that is created by an earthquake, a mega tsunami is usually created when a massive amount of material suddenly falls into water, which displaces that water into a huge wave. The most
How massive could it, unless it's like a meteor or something, how massive could an object be to make a bigger wave?
tragic and possibly terrifying instance of this happening in recent times was back in 1963 here in Italy.
Recent? This ain't recent.
Just 100 kilometers north of Venice. The Italian government and a construction company were building what at the time was going to be the largest dam on Earth. The only problem was that they were building this dam with a huge water reservoir the size of a large lake right next to one of the most unstable mountains on the planet.
That is what I call a recipe for disaster.
For months leading up to the
Oh.
completion of the dam, there were several minor landslides and other signs that there could be a catastrophe coming. The government and company continued to ignore all the warning signs until it was obvious that the mountain was actually going to collapse directly into the dam's reservoir. The engineers calculated the landslide that would likely occur, lowered the water in the reservoir to what they believed was a safe level, and then actually stood on top of the dam the night that they expected the landslide to
So they knew that this mountain was gonna fall, or there's gonna be a big landslide, and then they go and stand on the dam that is going to be affected if there is a landslide. Man, these people are out of their mind.
occur to watch it all go down. The only problem was, the landslide ended up being over 10 times more powerful than what their calculations
Why didn't they go in a helicopter or something and watch it from in the air? Or, like, I mean, there are better ways to do it than what they did.
had predicted. This is a view of that mountain today. This right here used to be the reservoir, and all the land that's there now came crashing off the mountain from these areas that are now exposed white rock. This tremendous amount of earth and rock fell into the reservoir in a matter of seconds, completely filled the entire reservoir, and generated a wave 250 meters high that flew over the top of the dam and into the villages below.
A lot of damage!
The wave was almost the same height as the Transamerica building in San Francisco for some
Wow.
reference, and caused an impact crater 60 meters deep and 80 meters wide when it slammed into the ground on the other side of the dam.
It created a crater 200 feet deep.
If you were standing from this angle looking up at the dam at the exact moment that the wave came over it, the entire sky that you see in this picture would be completely covered by water. This photo was taken in the town of Longarone, which before the mega tsunami looked like this, but afterwards looked like this, completely
It wiped the entire town.
destroyed. Around
Oh my
2,000 people
goodness.
lost their lives in the accident, but it's not actually the largest mega tsunami even in recent history.
I want to know if people started going after the government after that happened, because the government and the company, they just kind of ignored everything, right? I wouldn't be surprised.
Distinction would have to go to a mega tsunami that happened here in Lituya Bay, Alaska back in 1958. A powerful earthquake caused a massive landslide to occur here at the backside of the bay. The huge amount of land that came crashing into the bay created a titanic wave 525 meters high.
1,700 feet high? What? So I guess that kind of answers my question, you know, what could possibly fall into the water to make a wave so high? Well, like, I was thinking it would be like a meteor or something like that, but no, it's freaking just landslides.
High that slammed into this part of the bay, completely went over it and smashed into the other side here. The height of this wave was over 100 meters higher than the tip of the Empire State Building, and just 16 meters short of the recently built One World Trade Center in New York City. But
That's like 28 million times taller than I am. I guess that's because I am only a few inches tall, but still.
the largest tsunami generated from a landslide happened around 1.5 million years ago in Hawaii, on the Pacific island of Molokai. At some point around that time, about 1/3 of the northern portion of the volcano collapsed into the ocean and generated a wave 600 meters high, which would have completely inundated the entire island of Molokai and wreaked havoc on the rest of the island chain. This wave would have been about...
If you're a surfer, I wonder if you could ride one of those waves and be fine from it. Like, no, you wouldn't be fine, because when that thing comes down, you're going down with it.
About the height of 4 Great Pyramids of Giza stacked on top of each other, but even that pales in comparison to the largest ever known mega tsunami, which was caused by an asteroid.
There we go. There we go. That's what I was thinking. You know, if an asteroid would hit Earth, it'd be a big tsunami.
The same asteroid that likely killed the dinosaurs also caused possibly the largest mega tsunami in all of Earth's history when it crashed into the modern-day Gulf of Mexico. You would need 2 million Tsar bombs to release this same amount of energy, which caused an equally unbelievable wave of up to 5 kilometers high that would have smashed into the Gulf Coast states of the modern-day United States. There's really no fear of something like that ever happening again, right?
I mean, asteroids are always flying into Earth, right? Not massive, but like little meteors, right?
0.00001% chance of one of the Canary Islands collapsing into the ocean during your lifetime happens, which would cause a tsunami about 1 kilometer high and would probably wipe out the entire east coast of the United States. Unless that happens, then no, probably not. But it's still fun to think about.
Wait, what? It's fun to think about a tsunami crashing. Maybe for you. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. It's freaking crazy, man. I was not aware of how high they could be and or what would cause them to go so high, but I never even thought of, you know, land sliding into the ocean, which would create a massive wave. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you're new, subscribe to join the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Links in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Boop. What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to how the universe is way bigger than you think by Real Life Lore. Now, I know the universe is pretty big. I mean, I'm aware that it's pretty big. But as far as to how big it is, I don't know. But with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
This is Earth. You live here on this planet somewhere, and everything that you've ever known is located right here. But just how small exactly is Earth when compared to the scale of the entire universe? Let's start by zooming out to where we can see our nearest cosmic neighbor, the Moon. You may think that the Moon is very close to Earth since it dominates our night.
I mean, it's close in relativity, I guess, but doesn't it take, I thought I heard that it takes like 2 days to get there or something.
Skies, but in reality the Moon isn't this close to our planet, it's actually about this far away. 384,400 kilometers away from you right now.
What? Oh wow, I did not know that. 238,000 miles. How do you travel that fast in 2 days? That doesn't make any sense.
On average, you could fit 30 entire Earths in between this distance.
How long does it take to get there?
If you're able to drive a car at a constant 100 kilometers per hour speed, it would take you about 160 days to drive the entire distance.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
12 humans have actually set foot here, representing the furthest away that any individual human has ever been away from the Earth. This is what the Earth would look like from there if you were standing there with them. And if you wanted to communicate with somebody back at home, it would take a message about 2.5 seconds to travel between you and them, since that's how fast the speed.
How long does it take to get to the Moon then? Because I thought I heard that it takes 2 days to get to the Moon. But if you're 283 or 38, I don't know which one of the two, 1,000 miles away, I mean, you can't travel that fast in 2 days. Unless, I don't know how, you'd have to be going so freaking fast.
Speed of light can travel at. This is a photo that was taken on Mars, and that tiny dot that you see there is Earth as seen from the Martian surface. On average, Mars is an incredible 225 million kilometers away from Earth. That means that whenever humanity finally gets around to landing a human on the planet, that person will be 986 times further away from Earth than the astronauts who landed on the Moon were. In addition, the time delay for sending a message from Mars back to Earth is...
It'll take like an hour or something.
Isn't just 2.5 seconds, it's actually more like 20 minutes each direction, which would render instant communication in the event of an emergency impossible.
20 minutes. An emergency would happen and you'd probably, you know, be by the time a message gets to Earth.
When we zoom out even further away, we can find the Voyager 1 space probe, which is the furthest away man-made object from Earth. It is...
Wait, they didn't even cover how long it takes to get to the moon. I'm actually curious now because I thought it took 2 days, but you have to be going really fast to do that.
currently located 138 AUs from the Earth. AU meaning astronomical unit, which is the distance between the Earth and the Sun, which means that Voyager 1 is 138 times further away from us than the Sun is. At some point on its long voyage, Voyager 1 turned its camera around and took this photograph. It may not look like much at first, but in my opinion, this is the greatest single photograph.
Is that the Earth right here?
Ever taken in all of human history. This tiny, pale blue dot is Earth. Voyager 1 is currently traveling at 17 kilometers every single second, but even at that
11 miles a second? If you're going that fast, how long would it take to get to friggin' the moon then? Because 11 miles a second is pretty friggin' fast.
that speed, it won't break out of the reach of our solar system for another 30,000 years.
What?
Once we go beyond the solar system, we arrive in our interstellar neighborhood. The star Proxima Centauri here is the closest other star to us other than our sun, but it's still 4.24 light years away from us. To put that into perspective, it would still take Voyager 1 over 70,000 years to reach it. In a
70,000 years? Wow.
In other words, if you drove your car at 100 kilometers an hour like in our previous example to the moon, it would take over 6 times longer than the entire age of the universe is just to finally get there, and it wouldn't even exist still when you
Sounds like one heck of a road trip.
arrived. When we zoom out even further, we can see the entire Milky Way galaxy, inside of which Earth is located right here. The entire galaxy spans over 100,000 light years from end to end. There are over 100 billion stars and over 100 billion planets inside of our galaxy.
That's freaking nuts. It really is.
But you have never seen the full glory of the galaxy at night, because 99% of the stars that you can see with the naked eye are limited to this small, tiny region right here. But even
That's all the stars you can see in the night sky that's right here. You don't see any of this.
this massive galaxy is nothing compared to the rest of what's out there. Zooming out even further and we arrive at the local group of galaxies, a collection of 54 different galaxies that is about 10 million light years across. But zooming out even further and we can see the Virgo supercluster. There are at least 100 other groups of galaxies just like our own local group inside of here, and the distance from one side to the other is a mind-numbing 110 million light years.
It's so friggin' big that it's basically lost its big effect on me. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's lost its awe because because of how big it is. I'm just like, yeah, it's friggin' massive. What do you want? It's friggin' massive.
But even the massive Virgo supercluster is nothing but a quiet and tiny lobe of the Great Laniakea supercluster.
Wait, so this is a whole bunch of different it's a whole bunch of different superclusters?
Did you just stroke out there? Calm down now.
Oh my goodness.
Enormous structure that is home to our galaxy as well as 100,000 other galaxies. The distance from one side to the other is 520 million light years, but from even there we can zoom out all the way to the entire observable universe and see that even the titanic Laniakea supercluster is just a tiny and insignificant part of everything. This is the
What are the other ones? Are these all superclusters too or something?
observable universe, and it contains everything that we know of. It is home to at least 2 trillion different and individual galaxies, which together contain more stars than there are grains of sand on the entire Earth. The distance from Earth to any side of the observable universe is 46.5 billion light years, which means that the entire width is 93 billion light years across.
Don't tell me there's more. Don't tell me there's more. No, this is the observable universe.
What's perhaps even more interesting, however, is what actually lies beyond the observable universe. And it's entirely possible that the rest of the universe outside of it is vastly larger and more fantastic than we can possibly ever imagine.
Yeah, because what we've seen so far hasn't been fantastic or crazy at all.
Simply don't know what else is out there because the light from these incredibly distant places has not yet had enough time in the universe's history to reach us yet back on Earth. And the light from some places may never reach us at all. Because some parts of space very far away from Earth are expanding away from us faster than the speed of light, that means that the
light will never catch up.
Light from these places will never, in an infinite amount of time, reach Earth. We are all so unbelievably small, but you shouldn't worry, because all that means is that there is so much left out there for us to discover together.
That was friggin' nuts. And, it did kind of lose its effect on me because of how big it is. It kind of lost its awe factor. After it gets to a certain point, you're just like, you know, you can't really get any more awe. You can't get any more mind blown, right? If that makes sense. So I guess I hit that point because of how freaking big it is. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video. I like reacting to these kind of videos because it's kind of like going back to school. And, you know, I wasn't the biggest fan of school, but nonetheless, I do like learning new things. And yeah, I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you know, subscribe to your other family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. That link's in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to what is the tallest thing we can possibly build. So I assume you mean like tower? And isn't like the Burj Khalifa in Dubai the biggest? But I guess this is kind of like the limit, you know, how high can we actually go? That'll be interesting. But with that being said, the original link's in the description. This is by Real Life Lore, whom I absolutely love. So with that being said, let's begin.
It has always been a human desire to see how far up into the sky their creations can reach. Ancient humans used to gaze up at the night sky and dream about reaching the stars with their buildings. It is only natural for humanity to push further than ever before, and to build taller and taller than anybody before them. But surely there must be a limit to how tall we can eventually build something, right? What is actually the tallest thing that we could theoretically ever build?
See, that I'm interested in. Because I want to know how high we can go. Because I know, you know, in Dubai, they got the highest building. But how high can you go? Like, if you wanted to build bigger, could you? Because at some point, I'm pretty sure something's going to not allow you to build so high. You know, like in Minecraft, how there's a block limit.
To begin with a sense of scale, this is a standard height for a one-story family home, about 4.5 meters tall above the ground. Moving up from there at 128 meters high is the tallest statue in the world.
That's a lot freaking bigger. My goodness, that's that went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Statue so tall that if you jumped from the top of its head, it would take you 5.5 seconds before hitting the ground.
Wow.
Just a bit higher at 139 meters is the tallest roller coaster in the world. But that...
Now, I would like to go on that. I like roller coasters. I think I was on one last year or the year before. And it was pretty high, but nothing compared to this. And, you know, this would be quite an experience. Like, I wonder how far you could see being up that high.
That's not quite as high up as the Great Pyramid of Giza, which was built a very long time ago in 2570 BC. It was by far the tallest thing that we humans had ever built, and it maintained that record for an unbelievable 3,881 years, until it was finally beaten in the year 1311 in England. The Lincoln Cathedral reached a soaring height of 160 meters into the sky, and that remained the tallest.
Like, it doesn't even look that high. Like, obviously it does look pretty big, but if you compare it to some of these buildings, it doesn't look like it would take 5 seconds to fall from the top, right? Which it would actually take longer.
Thing that humans had ever achieved until kind of recently in 1884, when the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. finally surpassed its height at 169 meters. The Eiffel Tower surpassed it quickly and was 301 meters high above the ground, which absolutely dwarfed everything that humans had ever built before it. The Eiffel Tower kind of opened up Pandora's box though in terms
of building, so everyone starts going crazy over who can build higher.
of how tall we could possibly build something. With the advent of wrought iron and steel, the height of our structures could get much greater. The Chrysler Building at 319 meters tall finally unseated the Eiffel Tower after 41 years of holding the record. But the very next year after it was completed, the Empire State Building stole the crown at a
The very next year. Well, so much for that.
massive height of 448 meters. But even this record wouldn't last for very long, because starting in 1963, the tallest thing ever built by humanity would actually be a TV mast. The tallest of these ever built was the Warsaw Radio Tower, which ascended to a staggering height of 646
Wow.
meters. It collapsed in 1991,
A Ripperino.
but its height was never surpassed until very recently in 2008. To
What?
prepare for the scale of the tallest thing ever built by humans so far, I'm going to include several other very tall and recognizable buildings onto this graph first. But by far taller than any of them is the Burj Khalifa
There we go. There's the one that I was talking about at the beginning. It's freaking huge.
in Dubai. This monster building is 830 meters tall. It takes 2,909 steps to walk up from the ground floor to the top.
Imagine you work on the Burj Khalifa near the top, and you're late for work and the elevator's broken.
Or you can take an elevator ride that takes 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
2 minutes.
If you jumped from the top and somehow hit the ground without hitting any part of the building, it would take you 20 seconds to fall the entire distance. Go ahead and start a timer at 20 seconds to understand how long of a fall that actually is. But
Okay, so we're at 4:04. So let's see 20 seconds from now how long that takes.
the Burj Khalifa is only how tall we have built, not how tall we possibly could build.
Yeah, that's what I was
If we
saying. How
wanted
high
to,
can we build?
We could build something significantly higher. So what's preventing us from doing that
Wait, aren't they building something right now that's higher?
right now? In theory, there really isn't a limit to how tall we could build something at all, so long as we kept expanding the base of the structure
Boom! There we go. There's 20 seconds.
to support the added weight on the top. Since the Earth is spherical, there obviously is a limit to how much we could expand the base of the structure by. So given our current technology and resources, the tallest thing we could possibly build right now is likely the Exceed 4000, the tallest structure ever fully envisioned with completed blueprints. It would soar to an insane height of 4 kilometers into the sky, which would make the Burj
Was that like 2 miles or something? That's freaking huge. Could you imagine that? That'd be crazy.
Khalifa look puny in comparison.
That's what it would look like in comparison? Oh, we should build this. That'd be crazy. Actually, that'd probably cost so much money. It'd be pointless.
And it would be even taller than Mount Fuji is in Japan. It would even reach about 45% as high as Mount Everest, or 2,748 Toyota Corollas stacked on top of each other. The base of the tower would have to be 6 kilometers across in order to support the enormous weight on the top. It would basically be a metal mountain capable of housing over 1 million people inside of it, and it
Oh, that'd be a massive city you would have in it. Why do you have buildings on the outside? Everyone is located on the inside of it.
would be so gargantuan that it would likely disrupt weather patterns around wherever it is built. The cost of building such a titanic structure
This is what I'm curious of, because the Burj Khalifa costs an insane amount of money. The Burj Khalifa compared to this is nothing, so this thing would be like trillions of dollars.
however, is perhaps as equal a ludicrous thought. Estimates range anywhere from $479 billion on the lower end up to $1.4 trillion on the higher end, which is higher than the entire GDP of Russia. The XC4000 is a true testament to
Expensive.
possibility, and if we decided to build it today, there's nothing that could stop us from finishing it tomorrow.
Except 24 hours to build something like that's impossible. Also, the amount of time it would take to build something like that, it would take, it must be like 10 years or something. Or like 15 or 20. Because in a recent video I reacted to, people are still building a church that they've been building for 140 years. So to build something like this, that would take freaking forever.
In the future, it may become possible to build even more outrageous structures like a space elevator 100,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface.
Why would you build that? Why would you build an elevator? Why would you build an elevator like, I don't know, was that like 50,000 miles up? That's just stupid. Why would you ever do that? Like, building a city like, you know, the X4000 or whatever, there's at least a point to it. You can house a bunch of people. An elevator going to nowhere, it is just pointless.
Leave it out of this video until now. There doesn't exist a material that we can produce enough of that is both strong and light enough to build a space elevator. But if our technology advances enough in the future, it is theoretically possible to build, which makes this probably the tallest thing that could ever be built on Earth in humanity's future. For some
What? First off, if you can build to 100,000 kilometers, which is what, like 50,000 miles? If you can build that high, why would you say that's the highest? Why couldn't you go to 50,005 miles or 50,000 or 60,000? Like, what's saying that's 100,000 kilometers or 50,000 miles is your limit, right? At least we know for the X4000 or whatever that it's possible. We just have to have the money and the willingness to do it. But a space elevator, which we don't even have the technology to build, or there's certain material needed to build, why would you limit that to 100,000?
perspective, the International Space Station only orbits around the Earth this far away from the surface, while the 100,000 kilometer space elevator would stretch all the way out to here. Due to the Earth's rotation, the top of this elevator would be moving incredibly fast relative to the surface. This means that people on board would experience a modest amount of time dilation, similar to what astronauts on board the International Space Station experience today.
What would be the point of building an elevator like that? And how long would that take to get up and down? That would take so many days to go up and down the stupid thing. I don't know, it's actually quite comical if you think of it.
Astronaut Scott Kelly, for example, spent an entire year aboard the space station, and as a result of time dilation, he returned back to Earth 0.01 seconds younger than his identical twin brother.
Worth it. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. I think this is pretty cool, and that massive thing that we can build, the X4000 or whatever they decide to call it, I would love to see that. That'd be crazy seeing that in like real life. But then you go on and talk about a freaking space elevator that's what, like 50,000 miles long or 100,000 kilometers long. What? But, you know, besides from that, I think this is really cool. And if you guys like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you're new, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore, and I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to This is the Most Dangerous World Record to Beat by RealLifeLore. Now, I've never reacted to a RealLifeLore video before, but hopefully this will be quite interesting. As far as, like, the most dangerous world record to beat, I don't know, there's so many dumb and or dangerous things that you can do, so I'm not really sure which one is the most dangerous. But anyway, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
In the long history of insane people trying to one-up one another in stupidly dangerous world records, one of these records stands above all the others as being the most dangerous. That record is the water speed world record. How?
The water speed world record, that's the most? Now I'm even more interested. It's water, you're over water. Like if you fall out of a boat or whatever, and you land in the water, It's not like you're landing on concrete or hard ground or whatever, right? It's like, it's water. It should be, I mean, it is gonna be hard if you're hitting it at a fast speed, but at the end of the day, it's gonna absorb some of you going into it or whatever.
How fast you can make yourself move while on the water. The current world record was set in 1978, and every official attempt to beat it since has resulted in the person attempting it getting themselves killed. But what?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay, that might be the most dangerous. Do not attempt this, you guys.
What makes the attempt so dangerous? It should be pretty obvious if you watch a video of one of these attempts. Traveling at insanely fast speeds of several hundred miles per hour on flimsy boats on a lake is a recipe for disaster waiting to happen. But before the current world record in 1978 was set, the record was already an elusive and deadly prize. Going fast on the water for most of history wasn't really an exciting feat until we figured out how to put gasoline engines on boats. In the 1930s, the competition for the water speed record was in a tight race that kept going back and forth between an American and British team of idiot geniuses.
Yeah, they would have to be somewhat mentally disturbed to attempt to do this.
The first casualty in pursuit of the record was perhaps the ironically named Englishman Sir Henry Segrave, who in 1930 set the world record at 99 miles per hour. Apparently unsatisfied with not breaking past 100, he set out immediately afterwards on the same day to try again, but
I like the music you got in the background, it's really grooving. I don't know if I'd say it definitely goes with the tone of the video, because everyone who has tried doing this has passed away. But I like the music.
This time, his boat struck an object in the water which caused it to capsize and killed both him and his co-pilot. The record continued to go back and forth between the Americans and the British until a guy named Malcolm Campbell, bet you'll never guess which of the countries he belonged to, locked the record in place in 1939 before that big global war kind of stopped people from trying for a while.
Oh, that's right, World War II. That started around 1939, didn't it? Was that 1940? I thought it was 1940s it started. I don't know, man. I'm not that good with history. But nonetheless, wait. So this is what they were doing in between wars, because you know World War I had just happened in like 1920 something. So after that, they're trying to recover, and then there's a bunch of madmen racing boats.
Once the 1950s came around, though, and people started figuring out how to put jet engines on their boats, the fatalities of people trying really began to skyrocket.
Yeah, no kidding. Putting jet engines on your boat, that's insane.
An Englishman named John Cobb wanted to be the first person to break the 200-mile-per-hour speed barrier and built a jet-powered boat called Crusader to do it. In 1952, out on Loch Ness, he managed to get up to 210 miles per hour and achieved his goal and the record. But the boat's front plane unfortunately collapsed, which caused the boat to instantly disintegrate, causing Cobb to die from shock. 2 years later, in 1954, the pursuit of the record would claim its next life. The Italian motorboat...
Yeah, this is definitely the world's most dangerous world record. This is insane. Why do people do this? Some things, you know, can make sense, but this doesn't. It's just going fast on a friggin' lake. Is it really worth your life? Is it really worth it?
Federation was offering a 5 million lira prize to any Italian that could beat the record. So
$100,000 in 2018? Oh wait, when was this? Wait a minute, I missed something.
Later in 1954, the pursuit of the record would claim its next life. The Italian Motorboat Federation was offering a 5 million lira prize to any Italian that could beat the record. So 2 Italian businessmen built a piston-engine hydroplane named Laura 3. Traveling across a lake in northern Italy, the boat was going fast at 306 kilometers per hour, but ultimately became unstable and the pilots lost control of it. The boat somersaulted through the water and threw one of the pilots out. Following these disasters, a guy named Donald Campbell, son of the previously mentioned Malcolm Campbell, decided to break the record himself. Learning many lessons from Cobb and the Italian designers, he created a new craft called K7 that returned to the classic three-pointer design that was built entirely out of metal to increase rigidity. Over the next 9 years, Campbell...
9 years? You spent 9... What do these people do for livings? Like, I didn't even think of this before. But what do they do to make money, to pay their bills, right? You have to be doing something on the side, right?
And K7 went on to break the world record 7 times, finally getting up to a speed of 445 kilometers per hour in 1967.
miles.
He became the most prolific water speed record breaker of all time, and he could have retired then, but for whatever sad reason, he didn't. He wanted to go even further and
Yep, he got hooked to beating records or something. There's probably an addiction factor that was there.
Equipped K7 with even more powerful engines to try and beat his own record for an 8th time. He sped across the lake at an average speed of 475 kilometers per hour, and whether he got cocky or just reckless, he decided to go back across the lake immediately before the water had settled down. On this return...
Oh, that would mean that it was wavy, right? So that would mean that when the boat would hit it at such a fast speed, it would like tear the boat apart or something. I could see that making the boat, you know, get destroyed. Like, it sounds as if he was, one, addicted to beating world records and addicted to the speed maybe, and two, it also sounds as if there was a bunch of ego going behind it.
Turn run, K7 began to lose stability, and just 400 meters short of the finish line, K7's nose lifted beyond its critical pitch, took off, somersaulted, and smashed into the water nose first, breaking up as it cartwheeled across the surface. It took 2 weeks of searching just to discover the wreckage, but it wasn't until 33 years later in 2001 that Campbell's body was actually discovered. The world record that I...
What? 33 years later? How? How does that make any sense? How does it take 33 years to... And how did the body last that long? Like, if it was... It must have just been bones at that point or something. Because if it was in a lake, it would have, you know... Fish would have eaten it. Or, you know, it would have just decomposed in 33 years. And how did it take that long to find... I don't understand. What, was one person looking for it and they just gave up after like 30 minutes or something?
Mentioned at the beginning of this video was finally set in 1978 by the Australian Ken Warby, when he managed to get an average speed of 511 kilometers per hour during his run. He survived to talk about it, but the next 2 attempts to beat his record did not. The first was by an American named Lee Taylor, who had already gotten himself into a horrible crash that nearly him over a decade previously. Determined to take the record from Warby, though, he scheduled his attempt for November 13th.
So this guy already got into a crash and is like, you know what? I lived. Let's go at it again. I don't know. I think there's definitely a large amount of ego that goes behind these people trying to beat this record.
1980, but when the day arrived, he found the conditions on the lake unfavorable and canceled. Not wanting to disappoint the spectators and media, though, he went on a test run anyway and hit a swell which caused the boat to start violently shaking at the high speeds. The boat ended up collapsing into the water, which claimed Taylor's life in front of everybody who would gather to watch him.
What'd I say? There has to be large amounts of ego behind the people doing this. Because the person's like, oh, he didn't want to disappoint the people who came to see it, so I guess that would have been his ego, right? And then he goes and does a test run thing anyway, or whatever. Which, didn't he cancel it because of the weather or whatever? So, and then he goes and does it anyway. Like, there's... Oh my goodness. I can't.
Official attempt at breaking the record was in 1989, when Craig Arfons raced in his fiberglass Kevlar boat that's probably an Xbox Live gamertag somewhere named Rain X Challenger. But like so many before him, his boat somersaulted at 483 kilometers per hour and killed him. Ever since those 2 disasters, no official attempts have been made to break Ken Warby's record set back in 1978.
Good, keep it that way. No one should try to break it. I mean, and even if you do try to break it, don't actually be in it. Make it like remote controlled or something like that, where you don't have to be inside of the boat, because there's like an insane chance that it's gonna break up and get destroyed, right? Like, at least if these people who are insane enough to do this, you know, you have to be aware that there's such a high chance of you passing away if you do it. So at least create it so it can be remote controlled or whatever, so that way you can test it out until it works perfectly. And then you might want to try to do it with you in it. But still, like, it's insane. This is so crazy.
But despite the high accident and fatality rate, the water speed record remains highly coveted by both boat enthusiasts and racers.
Why? I understand there is an addiction to going fast. Like, a lot of these people who do this, I assume, there's a lot of, like, ego behind getting that record, right? Even if, like, just getting close, and you're like, oh, I was so close, I want to do it again, maybe I'll get closer, and then maybe I'll even beat it next time, or something like that. There is that. And so there's addiction involved in this. There's also ego of getting close to the record, beating the record, and then you have, like, fans or people showing up to see it, so you don't want to let them down, so there's ego there. It's really just a recipe for disaster. But, yeah, anyway, I hope you guys like this. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share a friend. I might react to some more of these in the future if you guys want. Make sure you let me know in the comments. But yeah, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. And if you're new, subscribe to join the family. I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to 5 impossible things that can happen on other planets. Now, impossible has, you know, like quotations or whatever they're called, so I guess it actually does happen. But it seems impossible, or it's really far-fetched, but it actually does happen, if that makes sense. Now, this is by RealLifeLore, who makes freaking awesome videos. RealLifeLore, you know, brings me back to kind of like being in school, where you're just learning stuff in, like, science class. It's quite awesome. But with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to RealLifeLore. Without any further ado, let's begin. I know, it just sounded as if I said school was awesome. It was not for me. However, I like science class, and this is kind of like science class.
There are some things that are just not possible on our planet. It would certainly be understandable that you would think that if it's impossible here on Earth, then it would be impossible everywhere else in the universe. But that's simply not the case, and the universe is far stranger than any of us can actually believe. Let's begin with shadows. Your shadow on Earth is always alone, and you're always used to seeing it this way as it follows you around during the day. You're also used to seeing everybody else with just one shadow, but this isn't a universal thing that would be experienced elsewhere.
It's not a universal thing? I guess maybe if other planets have stars that are kind of like really near each other, then it could cast multiple shadows. Because, you know, a star is basically a sun, right? Or a sun's a star. So if you have a couple suns, then maybe you'd get multiple shadows. Something like that. That would make sense.
You have one shadow because our primary light source on Earth is our sun. But what would happen if there were two suns?
Ah, got it!
Planet
Got
that
it!
orbits two stars would look much like Tatooine from Star Wars, with 2 brilliant sunsets each day and 2 shadows instead of 1 for each person. It used to only be science fiction until the planet Kepler-16b was discovered, which is a place that orbits 2 different stars. Assuming that you were teleported in a suit that could help you survive, then you would experience having 2 different shadows, a friend for your always lonely shadow that you experience on Earth.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. A friend for your shadow.
Our next extremely bizarre place is a planet that is likely completely covered in water, an ocean planet named GJ1214b.
Why do they get all these weird names? Can't they name anything cool anymore?
The planet is several times larger than the Earth. Even though water covers over 70% of the Earth's surface, water only accounts for 0.05% of the Earth's total mass. On GJ1214b, however, water may account for up to 10% of the planet's total mass, which means that the entire planet would be covered in an ocean hundreds of kilometers deep. Our own ocean goes down only a mere 11 kilometers, and we already have terrifying monsters like this. And this, or huge whales like this.
Why'd you gotta show me that? I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Come on now. Come on now. You gotta give warning before you show those kinds of images.
So, one's imagination can run absolutely wild with what
That's actually really cool. That's actually really cool.
fantastical monsters could exist in an ocean that's over 10 times deeper than our own. Who knows what could be lurking there if you crash-landed your ship on the surface, but what is known is that at the very bottom of this massive ocean, hundreds of kilometers beneath the surface, the pressure would be so intense that the water at the bottom would be transformed into an exotic form of ice known as Ice 7. This ice wouldn't...
Ice 7? We can't even give ice cool names? Come on! Whoever's coming up with names really needs to get a better job.
Be like ice that you know on Earth. It wouldn't be cold at all, but would remain in a solid form. This doesn't happen naturally on Earth, but neither does our next bizarre example. Weather on Earth is often violent and unpredictable, but it's extremely tame compared to other places in the universe. Take the planet COROT-7b.
Carrot? Carrot or Korat? I think naming a planet Carrot is pretty awesome.
For example, where instead of raining water, it rains down rocks. This is because half of the planet is scorching hot at 2,600 degrees Celsius, while the other half is far cooler at 177 degrees Celsius. The temperature on the hot side is enough to vaporize rocks, and just like how water will evaporate and condense into clouds on Earth, so too will rocks condense into rock clouds on this planet. These strange
rock clouds? Man, imagine flying a plane through that. That would not last.
rock clouds will then rain liquid rock or magma back onto the surface. But since the atmosphere is cooler the further up it goes, and the temperature on the cool side is far lower, the magma rain will often harden into rocks before striking the ground. This planet seems like the closest place to hell that a place in the universe could get, but another
That's
planet
crazy.
has perhaps even more bizarre.
So legit, the clouds are formed from rock because there's no water. That's actually awesome. That's actually awesome. Something I did not expect.
Weather. This planet, known as HD 189773b, is located 63 light-years away from us, is a little larger than Jupiter, and looks stunningly beautiful from space, but that beauty is hiding a terrifying secret. It looks this way because the planet's atmosphere is made up primarily of silicate particles. Winds on the planet can scream at 5,400 miles per hour, equal to 2 kilometers every second, or 7 times the speed of sound.
That's wind? That's freaking crazy.
Temperatures can soar up to 930 degrees Celsius, but most terrifying of all is that the planet rains glass sideways in its extremely violent 2 kilometer per second winds. This is so fast and scary that if a storm like that happened to appear on Earth,
It'd wipe out everything that it touched.
would travel across the entire planet at the equator in just 5 hours and 33 minutes, and leave behind a shredded trail of glass. But even this storm
And if you got caught in it, like, could you imagine? Because the wind was going, what, 5,000 miles an hour, and throwing glass at you? That would just go straight through you. You wouldn't last the friggin' second.
pales in comparison to the mightiest wind so far known in our entire universe, the wind on the planet HD 189733b. This is a gas planet with one side always facing its star, where temperatures can reach a scorching 966 degrees Celsius. But the temperature on the dark side is still very hot at 688 degrees Celsius. So, how does the dark side remain so hot still? The answer is extremely, wickedly fast wind, possibly up to 20
Oh, when it blows the heat over? I would just assume that, one side gets so hot that it warms up the entire thing.
2,000 miles per hour, equal to 10 kilometers per second, or nearly 29 times the speed of sound. For reference, the fastest ever recorded wind on the Earth happened during a tornado in Oklahoma back in 1999, and that was only 301 miles per hour. If
Wow.
you made yourself a kite and flew through the wind, then you could zip around the entire Earth in a mere 1 hour and 8 minutes. But perhaps the most interesting place is somewhere that's much
It's actually freaking awesome. That's actually awesome. I would not want to be there, but it is actually really cool.
closer to home, specifically this place called Titan, which is a moon of Saturn. It has such a thick atmosphere that we didn't even know what its surface looked like until 2005, which if you're curious, it looks like this. But
Ew.
Titan is a very bizarre place. It has an atmosphere, rivers, and lakes, and it even rains like on Earth. But the temperature is a bone-shattering negative 179 degrees Celsius, which is so cold that water is as hard as rocks.
Don't you mean ice is as hard as rocks? Because water is liquid and not really hard. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I think I'm right.
And the chemical methane exists in a liquid state. The clouds, rivers, and lakes on the moon are made of methane, which is the primary component of natural gas. Only 20% of Titan's surface has ever been mapped, but it is estimated that in that region alone there is hundreds of times more natural gas and oil than is located on all of Earth. There is so much gas on Titan that it literally rains it. It's an oil
It rains gas. What would happen if someone was just like, flick a match? Just flick a match there. Like, would the whole planet go up in flames?
tycoon's dream, and maybe the best way to encourage space travel is to let a few countries know about Titan. But even more strange, you could actually theoretically fly on Titan. The atmosphere is thick enough and the gravity is weak enough that if you attached a pair of wings to your arms and made a running jump, then you could actually flap around the moon like a bird, taking in all the alien sights of rivers and lakes.
That was actually so cool. That was actually so cool. I mean, the one there, the last one there, the wingsuit. You can kind of do that here because wingsuits are a thing. And you can go fly, but you can't flap around. And that'd be so awesome if you could do that. You could just flap around and go places. Who needs cars at that point, right? Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Possibly share with a friend. If you did, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. And I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to an airplane ran out of fuel at 41,000 feet. Here's what happened next by RealLifeLore. Now, I really like RealLifeLore's videos. They're normally really cool. And yeah, I assume if an airplane runs out of fuel at 41,000 feet, one, airplanes can glide, and if you're that high, you can probably glide for pretty far. So I don't know what happened, but I'm going to assume what happened is that they flew to the nearest airport and landed. Very exciting story, but I think that's what probably happened, but I don't know. Anyway, with that being said, the original links in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore, and without any further ado, let's begin.
Every single day, over 100,000 flights take place up in the skies.
Really? 100,000? I didn't realize that. I'm kind of scared of going on planes because of getting into a plane crash, but I didn't realize 100,000 plane flights a day happen. And plane crashes only happen, you know, once every, I don't know, few months or something, I want to say. So if you're doing 100,000, it kind of makes it really safe if you think of it, like, just think odds-wise.
Between cities all across the world. Right now, as you're watching this video, there's probably about 5,000 or so planes full of people flying over just the United States alone.
Wow.
Flying by airplane is by far the safest possible way for you to travel anywhere today in the 21st century.
Yeah, I know, like, the odds of you getting into a car crash are really high. Like, I've been in one. My cousin's been in one, my parents have been in one, my friend's been in one. Most people I know have been in a car crash. You know, I think the odds of you getting into one in your lifetime are really high. But I guess the odds of you getting into a plane crash aren't that high at all. Because 100,000 airplanes a day are flying. It's not like there's a crash per day. It's more like there's a crash every month or two or something like that.
But accidents do still happen sometimes. If you're driving your car on the way to work and you run out of gas, you may just have to pull over and push it or hitchhike over to the nearest gas station.
Yeah, like in a car you can have a lot of accidents, but the odds of you surviving them are a lot higher than if you're in a plane and have an accident.
But when you run out of gas on your plane while you're in the middle of flying it, your options are all pretty much equally shit. And that's exactly the
I did not expect him to swear.
situation that the crew of Air Canada Flight 143 faced back on July 23rd,
1983. Oh, that's a long time ago. Have people learned how to do things properly and this isn't a problem anymore?
1983. The day before, their plane was flown from Toronto to Edmonton and received its routine maintenance checks. On the morning of the 23rd, the plane was flown from Edmonton over to Montreal, where the old crew got swapped out for our new crew that takes part in this story, including Captain Robert Pearson with over 15,000 hours of flight experience
15,000 hours? Wow. That's a long time.
and First Officer Maurice Quintal with over 7,000 hours.
It's a weird profile pic.
It's important to note that at the time, Canada was in the middle of converting from barbarian imperial units over to the glorious metric system for their aviation industry. But Air Canada had so far only began using the
Wait a minute, let me guess what's happened here. Wait, so if they're switching from metric to imperial, what I think probably happened is that the amount of fuel they put in the plane was in gallons instead of liters, something like that. Or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know, but I know gallons and liters are different, right? I assume they filled it up with the wrong numbers for the wrong unit. Let's say the jet would require 100 gallons of gas. If they put 100 liters in instead, they would run out of gas so fast because I don't know the conversion. It's like, you know, there are multiple liters in a gallon. So if they're all of a sudden short gas because they didn't do the conversion right, it makes complete sense how they could run out of gas so high up.
metric system on their brand new 767 planes, which of course Air Canada Flight 143 was one of. Every other plane besides the 767s in the Air Canada fleet were still using Imperial units, and this caused a bit of confusion on the part of the refueling team, who were instructed to load up the plane with 22,300.
Here we go. Wait, they weigh in pounds? Or, not pounds, but kilograms? I didn't know gas was put like that. I thought it was, you know, a certain amount of gallons or whatever, but no.
100 kilograms of fuel. Unfortunately, they filled up the plane with 22,300 pounds of fuel.
Oh boy, that's bad, that's bad. The conversion rate from pounds to kilograms is 2.2, I believe. So for every 2.2 pounds, you have 1 kilogram. So they filled up the plane with around half as much fuel as needed.
instead, which was only about half of the fuel that they needed to reach
that's
Edmonton.
horrible.
The flight crew approved of the fuel without noticing the error, took off, and didn't even think about it until they were
It makes sense. Like, it's such a simple little error. I'm surprised this didn't happen more often.
41,000 feet high up in the air, and an alarm went off signaling that their left engine had quit working.
But do they not have fuel gauges on airplanes? Like, they couldn't see that, oh, the fuel looks like it's getting really low. We might have a problem here. Do they not notice that?
They were only about halfway through their trip to Edmonton, and with only one engine working, they
Yeah, because they only have half the amount of gas.
decided to divert to nearby Winnipeg for an emergency landing. Unfortunately for them though, quickly after the left engine went out, the right engine followed suit and died as well. This was of course because their plane had run out of fuel 41,000 feet high up in the sky, and with the loss of power,
Oh, that's terrifying.
loss in electricity for the entire plane, which shut off most of the instrument panels.
Okay, did they crash or did they survive? Like, you're 41,000 feet up, you can glide for a while, but like, how far are they away from their target?
Inside of the pilot's cockpit. Captain Pearson and First Officer Quintal were now responsible for somehow getting all 61 of their passengers and crew on board to safety without any fuel and with only very basic instruments. And they knew that they didn't have much time. The first thing they did was to frantically search through their onboard emergency checklist for the section about flying a plane with both engines out. But they quickly discovered that that section just didn't exist.
It didn't exist. Oh, that sucks so much.
This situation had never been covered before in their flight simulator training, and Air Canada
You think that would have been covered though? Like, flying with both engines out? Like, you'd think that would be a situation they would at least discuss.
corporate had just assumed that an incident like this would never happen, so nobody was really prepared for it. Luckily,
No kidding.
on board, Captain Pearson also just happened to be an experienced glider pilot, and decided
Well, 15,000 hours of flying, that's a lot of experience.
to do the only logical thing: glide the plane down to a super serious emergency landing somewhere. Unfortunately for everybody
Wait, so they aren't even gonna go land at an airport? They're just gonna do an emergency
on
landing?
board, neither of the pilots had access to a vertical speed indicator, which indicates the rate at which the aircraft is descending. This meant that the pilots didn't know with certainty how long they could continue gliding for before the plane inevitably smashed into the ground.
They don't have that, like, instrument? Why don't they have that? Have they now? Do they now have that? Like, you think that would be a thing they would add just for safety?
Captain Pearson made his best guess as to what the optimal gliding speed for the plane was, around 250 miles per hour, and First Officer Quintal began frantically calculating if they could still reach their intended emergency landing spot at Winnipeg. Using the mechanical backup instruments on board to figure out their altitude, and measuring that against the distance traveled that they were traveling provided by air traffic control, and he figured out that they had dropped 5,000 feet in altitude in only 10 nautical miles of gliding, which meant that
Wait, so for every 10 miles, the plane is dropping 5,000 feet? So if you're 40,000 feet up in the air, what is that? 5 times 7, I think is 40, right? So you can go for, is that 70 miles? I think you can go for 70 miles before you're 1,000 feet up. 70 miles is not much at all. Like, this to here, I don't know, but I could assume that's more than 70.
Winnipeg was too far away. Thinking quickly, Quintal suggested that they land at an old decommissioned Royal Canadian Air Force base at Gimli where he used to serve as a pilot. Captain Pearson and air traffic control all agreed on the plan, but unknown to all of them, the former Air Force base had since been converted into a racetrack, and
Well, it looks like the racetrack's going to be getting some surprise
at the
visitors.
time of their crisis, a race was in the middle of being hosted there, and part of the
Please tell me we have footage of this happening with the airplane landing. I mean, this was back in the 80s, so we might not. Cameras didn't exist back then, or cell phone cameras. But I really hope we have footage of it.
decommissioned runway was being used as a drag strip. As they were getting close to the old runway that's now a drag strip, they used a gravity drop to force the landing gear down without using any power. It became apparent that they were coming in too high and too fast, but they decided that they had no other choice and they surged ahead anyway.
YOLO, I guess, right?
There were a few things that made their landing extremely difficult though.
Friggin' cars on the racetrack, I would assume, is gonna be one of them.
First, without any engines working, their plane was making almost no noise, and so people on the ground at the racetrack had no warning of their sudden landing. Second, their nose wheel had failed to lock into place during the gravity drop.
Oh no, so it's gonna hit the ground and just slam.
Third, the plane had automatically deployed a wind turbine on the side of the plane to provide power for the hydraulic steering system since the main engines were dead. As long as wind was blowing and causing the turbine blades to spin, they had good ability to steer. But as they slowed down on their approach,
the blades would spin less. My goodness. I hope, this kind of situation taught plane builders or whatever, it taught them how to do things better so that this is not likely to happen nowadays.
Blades on the turbine span slower, which generated less power, which caused the plane to be increasingly more difficult to steer and control the slower that they went. But two almost miraculous other things happened that saved them from disaster. First was the nose wheel actually failing to lock into position. As soon as
Wait, that failing saved them?
the wheels of the plane touched down on the runway, Captain Pearson braked really hard and the nose wheel collapsed and was forced back up into its well. That caused the nose of the aircraft to smash into the ground, bounce back up, and then finally scrape across the ground.
Yeah, that's what would happen. What, did doing this make it so that they stopped sooner? So that they didn't go off of the racetrack or whatever? Maybe that's what happened.
The added friction of this helped to slow the airplane down even more and kept it from veering off into the crowd surrounding the plane on either side.
Oh, that's right, there's a crowd there watching. Yeah, that could have ended really badly.
Pearson also applied an extra right brake, which caused the main landing gear to straddle a guardrail that had been placed in the center of the runway, which created even more extra drag. Finally, Air Canada Flight 143 safely
I wish we had footage of this happening.
came to a complete stop on the ground 17 minutes after they first lost their fuel and had their engines shut down. Nobody on board the plane or on the ground was seriously injured, and following an internal investigation...
What about mentally injured? I'm pretty sure that would scar a lot of people. All those people on this flight probably were like, yeah, I'm not flying again. I don't
by
blame
Air
them.
Canada. Captain Pearson was demoted for 6 months, and First Officer Quintal was suspended for 2 weeks for allowing the whole thing to happen in the first place. However, they did successfully appeal their...
They were demoted? They were punished? Oh my goodness. Like, was it really their fault? The people putting in the gas in the first place were the ones who are responsible.
suspensions, and they were awarded the first ever diploma for outstanding airmanship by the FAI because of the incident. They both continue to work as pilots for the rest of their careers without another major incident taking place, and the 767
That's wild.
continued in service for Air Canada until it was finally retired in 2008, almost 25 years later. The lesson from the whole story is...
I was gonna say, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a punch in the face or what, but like, imagine being like punished for your actions when it wasn't really your fault. And then like, then you're given an award like right after. It's like, well, what the frig? The award doesn't feel sincere at that point, as you were initially punishing me. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Also, like, did they not have like a fuel gauge or something? That has to be a thing on airplanes. You should be able to tell how much fuel the airplane has left, right? When they were flying, did they not look at the fuel and be like, oh, why is it so low when we're not even halfway there? Like, they should have seen this coming beforehand, and they could have probably fixed this whole thing, you know, but before it and actually landed at an airport. So it's weird. Do they not have like a fuel gauge? I'm confused.
Is that bad math can kill you, but good math afterwards can still save you. Basically,
Big brain time.
if everybody just knew how to use conversions and math properly beforehand, this entire thing would never have happened in the first place.
Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Oh my goodness. I can easily see how this happened, and I can't, like, I'm surprised it didn't happen more often. Like, if they were changing from, you know, the units, it's such an easy and simple mistake. But, yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're new, and subscribe to the family. I really enjoyed this. I think I'd rate this LifeLore video out of a 10. I don't know. Maybe like a 6.2. It was pretty good. But, yeah, with that being said, see you guys next time. Boop. What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx today. I'm going to be reacting to why this room is the most dangerous place in the world by Real Life Lore. Now, I don't really know what to expect. I mean, I assume if it's a room that's dangerous, maybe there are like spikes above you on the ceiling and they'll come down, you know, like in like the movies. That's a dangerous room if you ask me. But it could also have something to do with like radiation. If the room has radiation stuff in it, that can kill you fast. Or poison, or snakes maybe. So it could be a number of things. I'm not really sure what we're getting into, but it sounds interesting nonetheless. Anyway, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
Everybody and everything that has ever existed eventually dies.
So we're starting off on a happy note today.
Death is ultimately just part of living on our planet, so it should come as no surprise to you that Earth is a dangerous place. But where on Earth is the most dangerous
Australia.
place? Assuming that you could take all available precautions like clothing, gear, weapons, a handy Toyota, or whatever else you can think of, and disregarding any laws relating to access, where would be the most dangerous place that you could go to that you're allowed to be prepared for? The quick answer is a basement located here in Ukraine, but the longer answer is
That's the most dangerous place, is a basement?
is ridiculously interesting and totally worth your time to listen through a little backstory. The basement is located in a familiar town to many of you called Pripyat, and is nearby an even more familiar nuclear power plant called Chernobyl.
Oh, okay. So it's radiation, I guess, right? Because everyone, a lot of people should be familiar with the Chernobyl incident.
30 years ago, in 1986, the Chernobyl power plant experienced a catastrophic disaster never before seen in the world. During a routine overnight test, reactor number 4 in the plant experienced a power surge.
See, I was familiar with the meltdown, but I wasn't really sure how it all like happened and what took place. So this is interesting. This is really interesting. I never knew this right here.
The nuclear core's temperature inside of this reactor grew rapidly, and in the following attempt to control this temperature, an even greater power surge was caused instead. Due to numerous design flaws inside of the reactor, 2 explosions followed from a buildup of steam caused by the core's increasing temperature.
Now that's a lot of damage!
The temperature got so hot that the nuclear fuel inside of the core began to melt, and this molten fuel began to seep down to the bottom of the reactor vessel. This nuclear lava melted through this vessel and into the concrete and pipes below, where it eventually reached the reactor's basement.
Yeah, like I never knew any of this happened. This is freaking crazy.
The now molten mixture of nuclear fuel, control rods, sand, glass, and concrete slowly cooled into an object that would later be called the Elephant's Foot. Back above the ground, the Soviet Union engaged in the largest civil engineering project in world history to contain the radiation spewing out into the atmosphere from the reactor. 500,000 workers were brought in to construct what became
500,000 people were brought in. You can almost bet all of those people were exposed to really high amounts of radiation and probably passed away not that long after. I wouldn't be surprised. Because if you're brought in to help contain radiation, that means radiation's already, you know, outside or whatever.
known as the sarcophagus, a gigantic concrete and steel fortress built around the destroyed reactor. Inside to this day are sealed 200 tons of radioactive corium, 30 tons of highly contaminated dust, and 16 tons of uranium and plutonium. Being on the roof of this sarcophagus is enough to expose you to a full year's worth of radiation in just 12 minutes.
Is that now? Is that nowadays? If you were to go there, that's what happens?
And the inside is so lethally radioactive that it could kill you within minutes. The sarcophagus today is surrounded by an even larger structure meant to further contain all of this radiation inside. But back in 1986, this was far from the case.
That's what it looked like? See, I think all these nuclear things, they should all follow a certain, blueprint or something like that, where, you know, a blueprint is made available for every country or whoever that's going to be doing nuclear reactors. And the country should be made to follow the blueprint or whatever, just so that if something were to happen, that it would keep everything contained. I don't know if that already exists, but if it doesn't, it really needs to, because it might have helped prevent something like this.
Ace. Scientists were sent into the ruins to search for nuclear fuel that could cause another explosion, and after 6 months of searching, a team encountered an unbelievably radioactive mass in the basement around the corner from where they were standing. Using a remote-controlled camera, the team took the very first photographs of the elephant's foot located inside.
Looks more like an ear than a foot, but whatever.
It's only 2 meters across, but it weighs as much as 100 tons. And it was so dangerous at the time that it would expose you to 10,000 Roentgens per hour, which means that in just 30 seconds it would be enough to induce extreme dizziness and fatigue in you that would last up to 2 weeks.
Wow, for 30 seconds. But wait a minute, you said they were there for 6 months. And they didn't notice anything before? I don't know. That's crazy.
After 2 minutes of being near it, it would be enough to cause your cells to hemorrhage. And after 4 minutes of being near it, it would cause vomiting, diarrhea, and a fever. If you were near it for just 300 seconds, it would be enough to guarantee your death within 2 days. But despite this, we have several photographs that exist of people right next to it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, these people who went down here, there's a very high chance that they are not around anymore. Also, this did happen in like the 60s or something, right? Or was it the 80s? So it did happen a long time ago, but still, I mean, they probably didn't last that long after this.
The grainy and almost ghostly effect that you're seeing in this photograph is because of the radiation produced by the elephant's foot interfering with the film of the camera. Nobody knows what happened to this worker or the photographer taking this picture, but based on the time limits that I listed earlier,
yeah, things did not go so well.
Probably isn't very good. They may not have known just how dangerous the object was then, but over the 30+ years since then, the elephant's foot has grown weaker. A study in 1996...
Oh, it's still friggin' there? Wait, so it's still there? They haven't moved it or done it? Well, I guess you can't. What are you gonna do if you move it? Where are you gonna put it, right?
10 years after the disaster, suggested that 5 minutes in the presence of the elephant's foot now would be enough to give you radiation sickness, and an hour next to it would be enough to kill you, which is far better than the 300 seconds that it used to take. However, the elephant's foot is still extremely hot and is still melting through the concrete floor of the basement. Should it melt all the way through and come into contact with groundwater, the results could be catastrophic.
Oh yeah, it would poison all the water. Oh my goodness. Maybe nuclear clean energy isn't the solution.
Another explosion might be possible, and the drinking water of nearby residents would certainly be contaminated. The elephant's foot will continue existing for centuries down in a dark basement, locked away inside of a giant sarcophagus, where the radiation will continue existing for the next 100,000 years. So if you're looking for the
Wow. I think the title does not lie when it comes to this situation.
most dangerous place to be on Earth, the inside of this building should definitely be near the top of your list.
However, I mean, it would have been the most dangerous place on Earth. I mean, it still is pretty dangerous, right? Because just being down there for an hour is enough to wipe you. But back when it originally happened, if you're there for 4 minutes, it would wipe you. So that's really freaking dangerous. But then again, remember what I said. What if you're in a room that has like spikes on the ceiling and it'll come down on you? I mean, that's probably like a 30 seconds before it takes you out. So that actually might be more dangerous, if you think of it. But nonetheless, I hope you guys like this video. This is interesting. This is very interesting. And it really goes to show that nuclear energy, it can actually be really helpful. At the same time, we really need to just make it safer by having precautions in case things go downhill like what happened there. And maybe we do now. I don't know. Anyway, if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Possibly share with a friend. If you know it, subscribe to join the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. The link's in the description. And I'll see you guys next time. Boop!
We arrive at something terrifying.
What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to what's the deepest hole we can possibly dig. Now, this is by RealLifeLore, who makes some pretty crazy and awesome videos. Hopefully this will be awesome. With that being said, the original link's in the description. Without any further ado, let's begin.
So at some point in their lives, nearly everybody has wanted to dig a hole down to the center of the Earth. The only problem is, nobody ever has actually dug a hole down that far.
Wouldn't it be like really hot down there because the Earth's core is like lava or something, right? It's something like that. So, you know, the deeper you go down, the hotter it would get.
This leads us to the question that this video is all about. If humanity decided that digging a hole was the #1 objective of our species, then how deep down could we actually dig with modern day technology? Let's say that we start somewhere on the Earth's surface and just start digging from there. Not too far down at 1.8 meters, and we arrive at the standard grave depth in Western culture, so if you're afraid of zombies, this is how far down they'll be coming from. 4 meters down, and we arrive at the depth that Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered at. A little further, at 6 meters below the surface, we reach the maximum depth that metal detectors can pick up signals from. At 12 meters, we can find the deepest burrows dug by—
I did not know metal detectors could detect 20 feet down. That's pretty crazy. I thought it could only do like a couple feet down.
by animals, the Nile crocodile. A little further down at 20 meters, and we arrive
Wait, what?
at the depth
Wait.
up signals from. At 12 meters, we can find the deepest burrows dug by animals, the Nile crocodile.
Wait a minute, that crocodile digs holes 39 feet down? What?
A little further down at 20 meters, and we arrive at the depth of the Paris catacombs beneath the city of Paris, a tomb that holds the remains of over 6 million people.
I was always interested in seeing what that would look like going there, but I don't want to because it would also probably freak me out way too much.
Double that distance to 40 meters down, and we can see the deepest swimming pool in the world. If you drained this pool and jumped into it from the top, it would take nearly 3 seconds before you would hit the bottom.
What kind of swimming pool is that? Oh, is that one of them for divers to practice in or something?
100 meters down is the usual distance that governments bury their nuclear waste at. And just beneath that, at 105.5 meters down, is the deepest metro station in the world, located in Kiev. Moving on to 122 meters down, and we see the deepest known point that a plant's roots have ever reached.
400 feet? Why would a plant's roots need to go that deep?
A fig tree in South Africa. 220 meters down, and we arrive at the deepest river in the world, the Congo River in Africa. Beyond that, at
720 feet down for a river. That's not a freaking river, okay? That's a canyon.
240 meters, you can ride through the deepest railway tunnel in the world that connects the Japanese islands of Honshu and Hokkaido. But at 287 meters down, you can drive through the deepest road tunnel in the world in Norway. 305 meters down, and you would still be vulnerable to the B-82 Earth-penetrating nuclear warhead, which—
What? 1,000 feet down, you could still be affected by that. That's crazy. This stuff blows my mind. It really does.
can destroy structures up to this depth beneath the surface. Incredibly though, at 392 meters, we arrive at the deepest well and possibly deepest hole ever dug by hand. This is the Woodingdean water well in the UK, and it was dug all the way back in 1862. At 600—
Why? Why is it so deep? That's crazy.
3 meters down, we arrive at something terrifying. The deepest vertical drop inside of a cave. If you were unfortunate enough to be in this cave and fall down this hole, the fall would be higher up than falling from the top of the One World Trade Center in New York.
Oh!
Even further down, though, at 700 meters, is where the Chilean miners were trapped at for 69 days back in 2010.
Oh, I remember that. That was 2010? Man, time flies fast. I thought that was like 3 years ago or something.
970 meters down is the deepest hole ever dug that still has an open sky above it, the Bingham Canyon open pit mine in Utah. Much further down at 1,410 meters, though, is where the deepest concert ever held happened by the band Agonizer in Finland.
What? They held a concert how far down?
To the surface. Much further down at 1,410 meters, though, is where the deepest concert ever held happened by the—
What's that in feet? But nonetheless, why? Why would you? How many people showed up? How many people possibly showed up to this freaking concert? Like 2 people or something? Like, it seems like it would take way too much time and effort to get down that far just to hear some band play.
The band Agonizer in Finland. 1,642 meters down is the depth of the deepest lake on Earth, Lake Baikal in Russia, and 1,850...
5,000 feet, or 5,300 feet for a lake. And I don't like the idea of swimming in lakes because of, you know, what could be down there. But 5,000 feet? Like, who knows what's down there?
7 meters down is the deepest part of the Grand Canyon. The deepest known cave on Earth is located 2,197 meters beneath the surface in Georgia, but the deepest hole that you could actually fall into goes way deeper than even this. 3,132 meters is the bottom of the Moab Kotsong mine shaft in South Africa. Taking the elevator takes 4.5 minutes to reach the bottom, but if you fell into it from the top...
Imagine if you're late for work, and you're there, but you still have to take this elevator down.
It would take you 25 entire seconds for you to hit the bottom and think about what you've just done. Even further down at 3,600 meters is the deepest point that a multicellular organism has been found alive. 4,000 meters down is the deepest part of the deepest mine on Earth, also located in South Africa.
2.5 miles down. That's insane. Why do you need to go so far down?
The trip from the surface down to the bottom takes over an hour to complete.
Trying to show up for work would be such a pain. It would take an hour to get down there. If you have to show up for work at 8, you have to be at the mine by 7. And if you live like half an hour away, you have to get up like 3 hours early every day before you go to work. That would be such a pain.
And the temperature at the bottom can reach a sweltering 66 degrees Celsius. 6,000 meters.
151 Fahrenheit? How can anyone live in that? That has to be hotter than anywhere on Earth. 150 Fahrenheit? You wouldn't live. That would be a horrible job.
The average depth of the oceanic crust beneath the ocean floor. Way down at 8,848 meters is the height of Mount Everest if it were placed underground instead. 10,994 meters down is the bottom of the Marianas Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean. Unbelievably, humans have actually dug down significantly deeper than even this.
Why? Why? Like, a lot of this stuff is cool. Like how deep and all this. But why? Like, you'd think we'd be doing other things with our time, like trying to find cures for cancer, you know, something like that. Something more productive than digging holes.
12,262 meters is the depth of the Kola Super Deep Borehole, a project where the Soviet Union attempted to drill all the way through the Earth's crust. They only reached a third of the way there, though, because the temperature at this depth...
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The deeper you go down, the closer you get to the core. And the temperature would be so hot that it would start melting equipment or something like that.
Reached 180 degrees Celsius, which was too hot for the drill to continue operating any further. The hole is also only 23 centimeters wide. So
What? That's the hole they dug? Well, I guess if you wanted to dig that deep, and you wanted to do it fast, probably digging a smaller hole is better, right? Like, if you're gonna dig a hole like the size of a car, or something like that, that would take a lot more effort.
You can't accidentally fall into it. Recently, however, this depth has been surpassed by the Z44 Shavio oil and gas well, which has drilled down to a depth of 12,376 meters.
Why? For oil?
The crust, however, can extend down to 70,000 meters below the Earth's
43
surface.
miles?
The planet's center is located 6,371 kilometers down. If the surface of the Earth is Lisbon, Portugal, and the planet's center is Astana, Kazakhstan, then humanity so far has just ventured this tiny, insignificant distance.
That's crazy. That's freaking crazy. So yeah, we haven't really done anything. Why devote all this time to digging a hole when you're not gonna get halfway there, right? Like, there's no point. Do other things. Solve cancer. It's freaking, I don't know, solve water problems around the world. Something like that, you know, do something different. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. This was nuts. This was really nuts. First off, I would expect people to get as far as they did. But then seeing how far they have gone compared to how far they need to go to get like halfway there or whatever, It's just, it's freaking pointless, because there was like, it was nothing. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. This is really interesting to me. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you're new, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. That link's in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Boop! What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to, these are the events that will happen before 2050 by Real Life Lore. Now, I really like Real Life Lore's videos. I always find them really interesting and cool, so hopefully this will be quite interesting. And with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Real Life Lore. Without any further ado, let's begin.
So as most of us are probably aware, predicting the future is a very difficult business to be involved in. Unanticipated events can always change what we thought would happen, but we're still free to make our best educated guesses with the means that are available to us. With that in mind, here are the events that will most likely happen before the year 2050 for you to look forward to happening.
Look forward to happening. So these are like good events, I guess, right? Because if you can look forward to it, it means it's probably good.
Starting out just next year in 2018, 2 new countries may emerge in the form of New Caledonia and Bougainville in the Pacific.
This year? And this year is almost over. Why do I keep hearing echo? Hey! I keep hearing echoes. It's weird.
As they hold independence referendums from France and Papua New Guinea, respectively. The FIFA World Cup will be held in Russia, and NASA will deploy the James Webb Space Telescope. In 2019, the United Kingdom will officially leave the European Union, and the FIFA Women's World Cup will be held in France. The next year in 2020 will probably be quite eventful. The Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia is scheduled to be completed, which will
Is this the new highest building?
become the new tallest structure in the world at a full kilometer tall. The Summer Olympics will be held in Tokyo, and Bigelow Aerospace plans on beginning construction of the first ever space hotel that will be able to accommodate 6 very wealthy
Space hotel? Who would want to go there for it would be kind of awesome, actually. I was gonna say, who'd want to go there for a vacation? You're really kind of confined. But it would be a crazy experience.
guests at a time. In 2021, India is expected to launch their first ever manned space mission. And the following year in 2022, China plans on constructing their first very own space station. In addition,
I thought they already had a bunch. Or maybe I'm thinking of satellites.
the FIFA World Cup will be hosted once again in Qatar, and the Winter Olympics will be hosted in Beijing, China. In 2023, the copyrights on the earliest Mickey Mouse cartoons will expire under current US copyright law, but 2024 will be much more eventful. The company SpaceX ostensibly has plans on launching their first rocket carrying cargo to Mars this year in preparation of a future manned mission. At the same time...
Oh, that's the year they do it? I always thought that would be... Why do I keep hearing echoes? Am I going crazy? Anyway, I was thinking this. That, you know, if you do plan on going to Mars, like, you know, SpaceX plans to do, you have to ship a whole bunch of... Do you hear it? I keep hearing echoes. But, you know, if you're going to Mars... You would have to send so much supplies there beforehand. That way, when people actually get there, there's food and stuff for them to survive on until more cargo shipments and stuff arrive or something like that, right? So I guess they're doing it, but in 2024. Which that stuff won't even be there, I think, for 2 years, right? Because I think it takes 2 years to get to Mars.
The International Space Station will probably run out of funding in this year and be decommissioned as a result. Finally this year, the Fehmarn Belt Fixed Link will be completed, which will provide a direct rail and highway link between northern Germany and Copenhagen in Denmark. In 2025, the Giant Magellan Telescope is scheduled to be completed. It will be the largest observatory in the world at this point and have 10 times the resolution power of the Hubble Space Telescope.
But can you do this? I don't think so.
Wow.
The UK will have completely phased out all of their coal power plants. The next year, in 2026, will possibly see SpaceX launch the first ever manned mission to Mars.
I would love to see this. I would love to see this happen. This would be crazy. Yeah, and this is 2026. This is after the supplies arrive.
Mars if everything goes according to their current schedule. NASA also has plans to send a manned mission to visit an asteroid this year, and construction on the Catalan Cathedral Sagrada Familia will also be finally completed. Construction on this epic church began all the way back in 1882.
What? What? They've been building a church for 200 years? Why? Why is it taking so long? I did not know that. That's actually mind-blowing to me.
Which means that it will have taken 144 years to finally complete.
Look at the style of it. This was the style that was in style 140 years ago. And by the time this thing's done, it's gonna look so out of style. But it does look kind of cool though.
Completed this year. In 2027, 10 years from the current year if you are watching this in 2017, the SpaceX crew that launched the year previously will finally arrive at their destination.
Oh, it only takes 1 year to get to Mars? Oh, maybe it's a 2-year journey, so there and back's 2 years.
Meaning that we might witness the first ever humans to set foot on Mars this year. Also, the full autopsy report on Elvis Presley, which was agreed to be sealed for 50 years following his death, will finally be made publicly available this year.
Why was it blocked from going public?
When the 2030s finally arrive, we'll all be in for a very interesting decade. At some point this decade, NASA plans on launching their own manned mission to Mars, so if SpaceX failed to accomplish this in 2027, then NASA will probably land the first humans on the Red Planet sometime around now.
So if SpaceX, if they make it, why would NASA even bother? Go get your own planet, NASA.
China further has plans on launching their own manned mission to the moon sometime during this decade as well. Skipping ahead to 2036, however, and we arrive at perhaps the most ambitious upcoming space project called Breakthrough Starshot. The plan should be able to send tiny spacecraft to the Alpha Centauri star system, the nearest other star to Earth. A planet inside the system is located inside of the habitable zone here.
How do they plan to send something that far away? Because do you know how fast that would have to go? What are they going to be using to make it go so fast?
When the tiny ships are hopefully launched in 2036, they will arrive in the system 20 to 30 years later and can take detailed photographs of this mysterious planet. In 2037, we may see the first
20 to 30 years later. Okay. Well, that's a disappointment.
First summer where there won't be any ice in the Arctic.
So these are like good events, I guess, right? Because if you can look forward to it, it means it's probably good.
And by 2040, France will have completely banned the sale of all gasoline and diesel vehicles in the country. In 2042, the world population will have probably reached 9 billion people, while Americans of European ancestry will become a minority group inside of the United States for the first time. This year will also probably see the advent of the world's first trillionaire as well, and
I mean, I wouldn't put it past it happening sooner, because Jeff Bezos is worth, what, like $100 million or something? Some insane amount of money. So he's 1/10 of the way there, and Apple just hit a value of $1 trillion.
In 2044, the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, including The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, will enter into the public domain. 2045 is the estimated year of the technological singularity according to the famed futurist Ray Kurzweil, meaning that this may be the year where artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence, which could lead to enormous and
After this point, everything just goes downhill.
unforeseen changes in society. In 2048, the Antarctic Treaty will come up for review, which could lead to mining and oil industries opening up on the continent for the first time. And finally, we will arrive at the year of
Why would there be oil there when all these countries are going to be stopped using it at that point?
2050. By this point, half of the Amazon rainforest will likely be deforested. About 70% of the world population will be living in cities. About half of the global population may not have access to clean drinking water. The average global life expectancy may be 76 years old. There will be super smart artificial intelligences that will be even smarter than humans. Self-driving cars will likely be
Right now there are self-driving cars, basically, right? So, I mean, you give, I'd say, 10 years, and we would have fully functioning self-driving cars, right? Because we basically already do, but, I mean, they still get in crashes now and then. But like in 10 years, the technology will be so superior and so much smarter than it is now. I could easily see there be fully functioning self-driving cars within 10 years, not 2050.
Normal, and a new world of possibly hundreds or even thousands of people will be living and working on Mars. There are things to be both afraid of and excited for in the future, so let's make sure to work as hard as we can in the present to make our future the best one that we can possibly imagine.
Anyway, guys, I hope you like this. I think this is really cool. And some of this stuff, I think could actually happen sooner than 2050. Like the self-driving car one. It's basically already a thing now, right? But I mean, in 10 years, I think it would be more of a thing than it is right now, because we're just reaching the self-driving car phase. But yeah, anyway, with that being said, if you guys like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share with a friend. If you're new, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to RealLifeLore, the link's in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Boop! Why do I keep hearing echo? Boop! Boop! You hear that? It's a certain pitch. Boop! 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 There it is, that's it. Whatever that pitch is, it's causing an echo. I don't know what's freaking echoing.